Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Apex Legends Global Series. This is day 2 of the Pro League, day 1 for the likes of FaZe Clan, Space Station Gaming, and so many more. We have so many stories in store for you as Team Liquid and RG in Group A will be going up against the likes of 100 Thieves, The Guard, and more in Group C. And I can't call the action by myself. I got to bring my 2 co-hosts along with me for the ride. They'll be casting the action all day long. Onset in Gaskin for the very first time for North America. Hey, here in ALGS Year 3. How are we feeling, Onset?
Feeling good, man. It's good to get back across the pond, so to speak. We did a little bit of EMEA action earlier on, and now we get to see some of the biggest and best in the world go up against each other. Super excited to see some of these teams. It's the first time, of course, that we're going to see Group C play. We saw Group A and B go up against each other in match day 1. So Group C, it's very interesting to see what they're going to have in store for us.
Gaskin, how you feeling?
I mean, over on the other side, you've got to look at the difference between EMEA and North America. That's always one of the most exciting things for me when we do this show and where we get to see the real changes, the composition differences, the play style differences. It has been such a world apart, really, when you look at what these teams have been doing, and I'm sure there's going to be new innovative ways that people try and get wins here today.
That's right. It was interesting in EMEA, the obviously diversity of team compositions we saw. We'll see a little bit less of that in North America. We'll have a chance to talk about that and more throughout the entirety of the broadcast. First things first, let's take a look at our participating teams. We teed up a few of them already. In Group C, we have 100 Thieves, FaZe, Luminosity Gaming, representing Mexico, Optic Gaming, who's been on fire. So many notable teams. Onset, which ones stand out to you the most?
There's a couple that we need to quickly highlight, right? Sentinels back in Pro League action. Obviously, Tech becoming their coach as well. Adding a little bit of brains to the brawn. You've got NRG, of course, who have been pretty hot in the build-up. A little bit of slow week 1, but they've pretty much won everything around the ALGS as far as tournaments are concerned. You've got Complexity, have looked pretty good in scrims in the last week as well. So I think there's a lot of teams to talk about here and a lot of teams who it's going to be kind of tough to pick who's going to be at the top of those leaderboards come the end of the game.
Yeah, well, let's flip on over to our standings as a result of Sunday's action. Gaskin, it was an interesting day. TSM won it. Team Liquid in 3rd. Atlanta Premier, the surprising 2nd place team. But your thoughts on the overall standings here in North America?
I mean, we won't see TSM or Atlanta Premier feature today, so that's good news for the rest of the lobby because they were taking a lot of the victories, especially on Storm Point. I will say that, you know, I think that when we look at all of the squads in North America and how many spots we have to qualify and get into playoffs and further for champs, it seems like there's too many teams to try and put in those places, and it is going to be extremely competitive the further we get into ALGS Year 3.
Yeah, that's right. Top 9, of course, in overall standings at the end of Pro League is the important number. Those teams will qualify for the playoff LAN championship. Keep a close eye on that throughout the entirety of our standings for the Pro League. And of course, you don't see all those top right teams. The Group C teams have not played yet. This is their debut. This is their first time. They'll have a chance to earn some points up against Group A. So the likes of Sentinels, the likes of 100 Thieves, The Guard, and so many other teams that are in that Group C have not yet participated. They'll be playing today, and of the teams playing today, there's quite a few to watch, and we all picked one in particular. For me, well, it's Team Liquid, and it's about time. After them playing so well throughout Split 2 playoffs and ALGS champs, we continued to talk about Optic. We talked about TSM. It's time we talk about Team Liquid. They have been so incredibly good over the last 8 months. Hodsik, the coach, really redefining this roster, their play style on Storm Point, the first team to really perfect that map. Fun in particular has been playing out of his mind. We give a lot of respect to Nocturnal as the IGL. He's slowly getting the respect he deserves as one of the best IGLs and fraggers, but Fun was the most impressive for me on Sunday. He was flying around playing super aggressive, and talk about Sykes, a lot of question marks. How are you going to fill the shoes of Gildersons? Sykes has done exactly that. The rookie, the controller player, has fit this squad so incredibly well. Team Liquid is going to be great today, in my opinion. Onset, who you got?
I am going with the team who came 3rd at the ALGS Championships, and that is going to be 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves, I think a lot of doubters maybe in the build-up to the ALGS Championships saying, has this team still got it? Have they got the potential to still win tournaments? Can they still be there with the big boys? Well, I think they answered a lot of those questions. A lot of their wins on World's Edge showed how solid they are as a team on that map in particular. The fact that we have World's Edge back in the lineup as well for this season of Pro League is going to be great news for them, but I think Vaxilon was the standout at champs, right? This man was clutching so many big moments for them. His damage output was exceptional. He was arguably in the conversation for the MVP when we came to the end of play, and I think that 100 Thieves for sure are going to be one of the most dangerous teams to watch in this lobby, and certainly when we get to the end of things, I think they might be in those qualification spots as well.
And we couldn't mention teams to watch without talking about FaZe and their new roster. Sniped returning to Apex Legends, previously, of course, on TSM, wanted to get back into Apex, wanted a squad to do so, and he goes alongside Albreleli, who used to be on Cloud9, an incredible IGL, and they round up this squad with Slurpee G, who has formerly played incredibly on teams like SXG, for example. The three of them, well, they've had some rough times, and maybe it was a bit of a blessing in disguise that they didn't feature in week 1, but they seem to have found their composition, they seem to have found their form in scrims, and I'm very excited to see what they can do this week.
That's right. And where are they going to be making their debut? Well, it's going to be on Storm Point. We're kicking things off. Matches 1 through 3 on Storm Point. Matches 4 through 6 will be on World's Edge, which of course will mean a change in team comp play style, a little bit of a halftime reset going into World's Edge in game number 4. We'll talk about that and more throughout the broadcast. But that's your rotation for the day here for Group A versus C. And guess what? You can watch Apex your way, however you want to watch it, courtesy of Multiview, an award-winning feature. Literally just won a Tempest Award for innovation in esports. This is one of the best things to happen to Apex and to all of esports. Watch whichever team you want, whichever POV you want, listen to their comms, hear every rotation, every drop spot. Oh, and by the way, you can have the main broadcast up as well, because you can run 4 different streams at once. Pick your favorite teams, pick the main broadcast, pick whoever you want, we don't mind. Watch Multiview by clicking Command Center at the bottom of the Twitch stream. Unbelievable experience, unbelievable feature. Big shout out to the Twitch and EA technical teams that made this a reality with Multiview. But hey, a lot to discuss today, guys. So many storylines, so many discussion points. But before we do all of that, it's the debut of FaZe in Apex. And I'm going to ask you guys to make a fool of yourself with your best FaZe up hand thing.
Oh god, I got it. Did you see how wrong I got that?
Am I doing it?
I came in with such like confidence and aggression, and I put my hand sideways, so it was more of a U. But yeah, Here we go. Look,
I have bad thumbs. Like that's my thumbs up, right? So trying to get it to be an F is not easy. So I'm gonna never do it ever again. Okay.
But do you use a thumb? You use the thumb, right?
I don't know, John. I'm too old for this.
Honestly, you nailed it. You knew I was going to do this. I did not tell any of these guys I was going to do this.
Casting FaZe for the best part of a year, I should really be able to do it by now, but even I messed it up. So, it is what it is. But, even with that preparation, I wasn't ready. So we're going to have to see if FaZe are a little bit more prepared than I am. But it's been, I think it's a little bit of time to talk about FaZe, right? Because Dan was kind of hitting the nail on the head. It's been a team that's come together. There's so much talent. We know how good these players are. We know what they can potentially do. But when you put a roster together, there's always that little bit of time where you've got to work things out, right? How do we want to play? What are our drop spots going to be? They've been contesting different drop spots. They tried to contest Optic. They tried to contest TSM. Both of those fights didn't go particularly well for them. So now they've had to find somewhere else to call home. And if you're contesting and you're not winning, then that means you're not even playing many of the games in scrims. So you're not even getting your rotations down. So a lot to learn here for FaZe. And I think both Albreleli and Sniped have both said it themselves, right? It's going to take us time. Don't expect too much right now, but give us a couple of weeks and we know how good we can be. So FaZe are certainly going to be a team to watch for numerous different reasons. I'm excited to see what this lineup can do.
That's a great point. It's a tall order forming a brand new team in competitive Apex, let alone the pressure that comes with FaZe being that team and the org backing them, that's for sure. But the question I want to know, Gaskin, is do you think they can hit their 360-degree no-scopes?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at the players on this roster and individually incredible. But I think Mark's right. They need to find, their team footing, and I said before, I think it was a blessing in disguise they missed week 1 because they were still a little bit rocky, but now their composition seems to be a little bit more structured. They've gone for Seer, they've gone for something that maybe Snipedown wasn't prepared to play initially, because I know he didn't have the greatest of thoughts onto Seer, but now he's playing Seer and having a lot of success, as so many people have, and you've got Gibraltar being there in the roster as well for that stability and maybe that more familiar feel. And I think that's about right. You go for comfort picks. You don't have to play what everyone else is playing necessarily. Just find something that is right for you and your squad.
Yeah, that's a great point. Albrelli's not afraid to shake up the meta and play a little off meta, that's for sure. So I'm excited to see what he can devise, and the fact that him and Sniped will be sharing IGL duties, I think is great. And let's be honest, they have Weapon X. Weapon X is Slurpee G. This kid's an absolute monster. Keep a close eye on Slurpee G, the controller demon. People have had his eye on him for about a year plus. It's about time he is now making his debut with a top team in the Pro League. Excited to see what he can do. But it's obviously not just FaZe. There's so many teams here, so much to discuss. Another one I want to bring up, because equally we should be putting respect on their name, it's Space Station. Space Station's a team that has played so incredibly well throughout the entirety of Pro League. Pro League Split 1 was a top 2 team, but then kind of fell down a little bit, worked their way back up, and ultimately was the team that could have kept us going at ALGS Champs. Did not find a way to do so. If you missed the promo video for this event, go to the Space Station Twitter. An awesome promo video speaking to the fact that they were the team that could have stopped Dark Zero at Champs. But more importantly, Onset, talk to me about SSG, this roster, their makeup, and what makes them so great.
I think SSG, the great thing about them is their consistency, right? Whenever we get to a finals lobby, wherever it might be, SSG are always there. They just find their way. Sometimes it's like a last second, last gasp game. Sometimes it's just a slow accumulation of points. But when we get to finals, when we get to LAN events, it always feels like SSG are in that lobby. And I think that's a testament to how good this team is. But another team that you touched on there, which I think we have to talk about as well, is Dark Zero. These three guys have won 2 LANs on Apex Legends, and we always seem to just kind of talk about these other big names that are in the league. But there's been 3 major events, I would say, in Apex Legends. We had the preseason invitational, then we came back in Sweden, and then of course we had the ALGS Championships. The LAN events, 2 of them have been won by the Aussies. Now they're over here in North America. And last week, they had a good performance in that final game as well. And I think the more that they get comfortable, the more that they find their way in these lobbies, Dark Zero are going to be a team that we have to talk about and are going to be demanding to be talked about as we see them progress in these games.
That's a good point. Apex South has been on top of Apex the last 2 LANs. Now they move to North America. Will it be a rude awakening, and will they continue their dominance? That's the question for the Aussie boys. Congratulations to them on making their move to Austin, Texas. Kudos to Dark Zero for supporting them in that move. But Jen Burton, Sharky, and Zero, the back-to-back reigning early on. Can Dark Zero be that next dynasty is the question. But then there's obviously the likes of 100 Thieves. There's NRG. There's so many different teams here. Pick your run to the litter here, Gaskin. Who do you have your eye on? Which another team you want to kind of double click on?
Sentinels is where I'm going to be kind of focusing. I think that they had a very disappointing end to their season last season. I think they'll say it themselves. The fact that they weren't featuring at championships was criminal, to be honest, with the talent on that roster and what they'd done previously earlier in the year. Now they've made a change and had a coach change that Mark was talking about earlier with Tech coming in. I think could be a huge impact. We spoke about it in the EMEA broadcast. Coaches seem to be more and more important the further we get into ALGS. That goes down to kind of structure of the team, finding the right composition, making sure everyone's on top of things when it comes to planning for these things, and also knowing your opponent, knowing not just drop spots, but where are those rotations? Where are people going to be? Who are you going to be fighting? What kind of style do you have to fight against certain teams? Should you be passive? Should you be aggressive? All of that can be studied by coaches, so it's very important you get the right person that clicks with the team, and maybe this could be just right for Sentinels.
I'm going to quickly jump in here as well, because I think there's a really good opportunity for us to highlight this Sentinels roster, and I want to kind of cast everyone's memories back to the interview that we had with Lou, right, at the ALGS Championships. He had to sit there and watch, and he was saying, dude, this is horrible. Like, this is great to be here and great to be a part of things and watching, but I want to be on that main stage, and I think that fire was lit back under him. My question is the fire lit under this entire roster? Is everybody going to be dedicated to this game? Is everybody going to be putting the time in, listening to Tech, trusting Tech on the information that he gives them? Because Sentinels, like Dan said, unbelievable natural talent when it comes to this game. The only thing that can stop them is themselves and putting in that hard work.
I love that. And kudos to the Sentinels organization for sticking with them, supporting them through obviously a slight lapse and not qualifying for LGS champs as well. All eyes on Sentinels. Complexity is another one in the same category. They've been looking really good with the pickup of Luxford. So again, there are so many stories here, so many top teams playing. It's hard to believe.
Optic, by the way.
We haven't even talked about Optic, and they've been playing so well. But look, guess what? Enough of us talking, enough of the storylines, enough of the setup. Game 1 is here, gentlemen. North America, your first broadcast, the debut for so many of these teams. It is match number 1 on Storm Point. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Fallout. And here we go then, Dan. Match number 1 is live. Storm Point is where we're going to be starting off. And like I mentioned, you can kind of pick your poison. You look at any of the team names that are in this lobby, and everybody has a story. Everybody has expectations. And every single team is going to have to fight extremely hard to finish up this Pro League in one of those top 9 spots. There is not enough spots, like you said, for everybody to get to that event that maybe should get to that event. And Optic Gaming, the team that we just about managed to squeeze into that end of that conversation, they're certainly going to be a team to watch because they have been arguably the dominant force in North America.
And now, if you were watching earlier the EMEA broadcast, you would have heard me harping on about how people who drop in certain POIs and circles that were going towards their landing POI, and the success rate was very different here in North America last week. Even though we still saw people have successes when the circle came closer to their POI, it wasn't as noticeable as EMEA. We saw more teams having to travel a little bit further to get that victory, which means we are going to see a little bit more skewed results when it comes to where you drop and where that final circle is going to be going. We saw a little brief oversight of it there. It is going to be a slightly northern circle, slightly central as well, but it will start to pull up towards kind of the wall area you would imagine, and maybe just a little bit south of it.
Well, we're going to start off by watching FaZe. We've kind of dipped into the story of this lineup and the return, of course, of Snipedown. He retires from one game, he comes back to another. The bad news for Snipedown is he can't get rid of us, Dan. We're still here commentating his gameplay wherever he ends up.
No matter where he goes, we will follow. It's quite scary, really. He's probably sick of our voices at this point. But you know what? I'm not sick of his gameplay, because whatever game he touches, it does turn to magic. But now can you put it all together, right? Like we've said, individually, all of these three players have been incredible across various teams. They have had some hardships, some struggles in recent weeks since they formed, but scrims as of late have gone well. Ever since they've been playing this composition, ever since they found comfortable drop spots, they do seem to be working out. But now, when it's crunch time, when there's money on the line almost, when you are playing in a more significant game, can you actually get it done?
FaZe certainly, like I mentioned on the pre-show, going to be a team to watch, see how they develop and what areas of their game that they have those strengths and where those weaknesses are. The kind of the thing to do here for FaZe is how quickly can we identify those weaknesses and how quickly can we adjust them, knowing that there are just, of course, 9 qualification spots for playoffs in this Pro League. So they're going to have to get it right quickly if they are going to be in contention to be one of those teams, one of those 9 teams, of course, who do get to that LAN event. But for now, it's about just making sure that they're heavily looted. You can see they're crafting up at the moment. Abralele's got a purple, there's a blue, and I'm sure that white armor on Snipedown is going to be put into the crafter as well to level that one up as well. But for now, for FaZe, it looks like a heavy loot. They don't have too far to go from down B's to where this circle might be going, but it's not a quick rotation, which is something certainly to note here.
Yeah, it's not going to be the fastest, and they are going to have to pass through some pretty awkward chokeholds. But good news for them is, looking at the map overhead at the moment, there isn't too much in their way. If they make their head like straight east and go through checkpoint, they should be fine with that rotation and should find themselves a nice little home if they are quick. But they won't necessarily know that there won't be teams in that checkpoint, so they may be a little bit slower with the rotation because of that. Elsewhere, there are some teams who have already found themselves kind of central circle. You see First Attempt already making their move and finding residents in a building. Also going to be playing Loba Oxygenar, and that's going to mean that there's a real opportunity here to kind of steal some loot away. If the circle does pull towards you, if teams do start dying around you, then you are going to have plenty of loot to work with.
There's a couple of things that have been very notable for me, just watching a couple of the teams when they see a Loba in the lobby as well. They're very reluctant to drop armors, to armor swap immediately and drop that armor because of the fact that they know there's a Loba in the area. If someone's in that black market, they're going to steal it away, and all of a sudden your time to heal is going to increase significantly. But for now, it's not even a fight that we have to focus on. It's the rotation of Team Liquid. We highlighted the new lineup. We've highlighted the fact that Gildeson's, of course, has now gone over to NRG, where he believes there's going to be more success for him. I'm interested to see if Team Liquid are going to try and target NRG a little bit here and try and prove Gildeson's, excuse me. That might have been the wrong decision.
And you can see there, beacon information is going to take us slightly further north, and I can say that 12 out of the 20 teams are already within that beacon circle. That's crazy how quickly all the teams are rotating, but does go back to the statistics that the quicker you rotate, you are going to find more success, is what we've noticed so far in Pro League with how the meta has developed. A lot of people avoiding fights, but at the same time, Guard just took down one member of 100 Thieves, so Rambo showing what he's made of, and it is going to seem like there are going to be plenty of battles happening, but they are just going to be little pokes at the moment rather than straight 3v3s.
Rambo, who, of course, made a lot of fans of the ALGS Championships, a lot of pop-off moments for him, that iconic moment where he managed to win that game as the solo player alive, doing so much damage for his team. And also, remember, filling in as a substitute on that lineup to really give them the gas that they needed coming in at the last second to not only be an amazing player, but the hero. And now some great shots coming in with that 30-30 are certainly going to help out. Just trying to destroy this Watson gen to make sure that team is going to feel even more uncomfortable than they were a few moments ago. But the Guards bang center zone at the moment, Dan. They've also got that Watson in the lineup. They've also got RKN on the crypto, so they should be able to not only fortify this building with those fences, but get so much information from that EMP and that drone as well.
Yeah, we saw such a high pick rate of Horizon last week, and I'm wondering whether that's going to go down slightly after the kind of results that teams have had with Watson featuring alongside Valkyrie and then Asia usually being the round out, but then also Newcastle has been, you know, so impressive in those final circles as well, that there is so much variety in where you can go with composition, and it is a very healthy meta at the moment in terms of which legends you select and who you are going to have featuring. But I am wondering whether we're going to see more or less Horizon this week, just based off what we saw from last week.
Yeah, one thing we did see, of course, with that defensive wall that goes down from Newcastle in those final circles. It's almost kind of replaced that Gibraltar bubble in those final moments where you see teams waiting to that last second to throw it out to the farthest side and buy themselves a bit of extra time. Getting that wall down almost does the equivalent, but the only difference is you have so much more protection. Nobody can walk up on you or they're going to get stunned, and you have those head glitches to play off of. So it's kind of almost like an upgrade on that bubble in those final moments if you play it correctly.
You almost have to, when you are on a team that doesn't have the Newcastle, you have to try and kind of predict it and isolate that Newcastle as he's jumping and be prepared for it. But it's so difficult when in those final circles, it's not like matchmaking where there's, 2 or 3 teams in a final circle. We're looking at 10 plus teams sometimes in the final circle. That's how nutty it is and how good these teams are at rotating early and finding these amazing positions as these circles get even closer and smaller. But we will see whether Newcastle really makes a difference in those final circles. We saw it a couple of times in EMEA earlier today, as well as last week, of course.
Well, Space Station's got to be extremely careful here, and I think Drop might have just got information. There is a team inside of that building that they were zipping down towards, or should I say zipping up north towards. So a little bit of a change of plan here for Space Station. I think they were hoping that building might have been vacated so that they could just take their time and reset and think about their next move. But instead, they've had to head a little bit west here through the waterhole and towards the zone from a slightly different angle.
And I do like this roster. I think that Space Station have picked up a very good team here, and I think that we saw what happened in the ALGS Championships. They got top 6, which was incredible, really. I mean, getting anywhere in the top 10 was never going to be easy with the sheer amount of brilliance we saw across the 20 teams that featured in the final lobby. But can they carry on that success? That's going to be the biggest question mark from a lot of fans and watchers, because individually, very impressive. Team fights in those final circles, they always seem to influence those battles as well. But sometimes you just go a little bit sour, you can go a bit stale. Are they going to do that? Are they going to be one of those teams that falls victim to that coming into year 3 here?
Well, it looks like the move is to the skies here from SSG. You did see the knock came in. It was actually Dropped who managed to take down one of the members of the guard. It's going to be Kieran. He went down. But can they take advantage of it? You imagine with the time that has elapsed that it won't be a case of being able to convert and take that building from the guard. It's just going to be a case of using that time to get the Valkyrie ultimate popped and get up into the skies without taking damage, as of course the guard would be taking their attention towards getting that res instead. Now it's up to Dropped to get information on where the teams are going to be around them, using that Seer passive as well as that Q to see if he can find any of those targets. But look at this. Unfortunately for SSG, they were looking strong, but now they've got a player on his back, and it's Optic. Not only do they get the knock, they get the finish. Now you're seeing the Black Hole come in, the Arc Stars, and SSG went from a position where they look pretty comfortable to now being just having to hold off this Optic push, and it is not going well for them. Space Station are done and dusted.
Any other team, and maybe you can get that player back up, but Optic Gaming, we know what they're like, and we know how aggressive they can be. When they see an advantage, they will take it. They get aggressive at the right time. They make sure they pick up that KP, and our first team is eliminated from North America Pro League here in week number 2. But there is also action in the kill feed. A couple of players being dropped left, right, and center. But it's whether Optic Gaming can now take that kind of kill momentum and progress even further into this circle and maybe get some more wipes on the go.
Well, Oxygen Esports, they're still residing inside of this building. They've been here for quite some time, and it looks like at the moment that they haven't really got too much to worry about as we look at our map overhead. No team's really in the vicinity to cause them any problems. They're going to be safe for now as well, but when we do see that zone pull, we're going to have to see if Oxygen have called this zone right and if they're going to be comfortable for the time going forward. However, a couple of teams who aren't looking comfortable. One of them is MPL, excuse me. They will go down to the hands of Pow Pow, who gets that final kill. So we have our second team now eliminated. Oxygen Esports, back to them. Much more serene point of view here from Protectful.
Yeah, when you are one of these teams that is kind of within the circle, you found a building, you know you're not going to be seeing much action for quite some time, but you do have to keep very aware, right? You can't afford to just be a lapse in concentration situation where a team walks up on you and gets free kills because you were, I don't know, stupidly looting or talking about who's got more batteries or anything like that. It's very easy to lose concentration in some of these long periods where you don't see action, but the best of teams will always be aware, will always be watching, will always be communicating to make sure they're on top of things and they don't get kind of run up on a little bit too easy. Circle is about to close and we're going to get some more information as to where it's going. I do think it will probably head a little bit more north of the current Cascade Falls situation where it is, but we'll see right here. There we go. It is going to be northeast of Cascade Falls. So there is 1, 2, 3 teams in that next circle.
One of those teams is, of course, Optic Gaming. The difficulty for Optic, even though they have the high ground as far as everybody else having to move up the kind of overall geometry of Stormpoint, is they do have that huge wall behind them, and I'm sure a couple of teams will look to late rotate, maybe take a Valkyrie ult over if they do get damaged, or maybe there's going to be a couple of Horizons in this lobby that can jump over that fence and cause some problems. Although, like you say, haven't seen as much of that pick for now. Team Liquid, though, they're involved in a fight, and I'm pretty sure the team that's on the other side of this is going to be FaZe, and there it is. Albrelella gets that first knock. Fun has to get that res, drags him back, and that is one of the things we don't talk about with Newcastle too much, is the ability to get those reses. Team Liquid, they're up to 3, but look at the pressure that FaZe are putting on.
FaZe are putting on the pressure, still trying to take advantage. 2 go down now, 1 remaining player here for Liquid, and even though they got the res, FaZe were not fazed by it. They were not scared by it. They continued to be aggressive. They continued to apply the pressure, and they are rewarded for it. So many teams may have been scared to push up, scared because of that res, and thought that they could have got maybe third-partied, but FaZe demonstrating why they're one of the best teams when they are locked in and when they are playing very well here.
The difficulty, though, for FaZe is they did all that damage, but I'm pretty sure they didn't get many of those KP. It was actually Rakinishu and crew who moved in to finish off some of those kills onto Team Liquid, and I think that FaZe are going to be pretty upset about that. Let's find out for ourselves. We'll jump into a listening now as they're trying to put pressure on this bubble.
Matt, I'm getting ulted.
They're pushing up, they're pushing up, I think.
I don't have ult.
Look, give me one, give me one. Wait, my bubble too slow.
Behind me. Oh, we're gonna die in the back. We needed him. Yeah, whatever.
Well, as we jump out of the FaZe listening, it was a brief one, Dan. It looked like initially they had all the damage down when we first jumped on board with them, but then all of the third parties arrived. Sentinel's one of those teams in the vicinity as well, and for FaZe, it's a disappointing game number 1.
Yeah, when I was just praising them for their aggression, you quite rightly highlighted it wasn't them who was getting the knocks. I hadn't noticed that because I was looking at the map overhead, but it meant that they were so vulnerable to those teams who were third-partying. I don't know whether the bubble came down late or something, but you heard in the comms they weren't too happy about it. It's not going to be the best of starts for FaZe here. It'll be on to the next one for them, and as I'm sure they dissect just what went wrong and whether they got a little bit too aggressive for those kills. But that is what Newcastle can do on the other side. Newcastle can really disrupt the fight with the ability to res and bring a player away who was knocked.
Great shots coming in here, and that's going to be the end of Rack Attack. They were the team initially who got that damage onto FaZe and onto Liquid as well. Unfortunately for them, during all of the carnage that went down when Sentinels got involved, they were left with just one player who had to hit the Valkyrie ult just to try and elongate the game for them. But he will be taken down at the hands of CLG. Now we're going to see bots. Stompy's has got the batter in his hands. He's having to use that knockdown shield, but the pressure now coming in on them as well. And all of a sudden, you're seeing teams just dropping left, right, and center. Slept on go down as well. And here come Complexity too in that kill feed.
Yeah, the further we get into this circle, the less room there is to play here, and that's why we're seeing so many teams getting knocked out. Sentinels eliminated, as you say, bots down to just 2, and maybe can get the third player back up because they do have the banner. But of course, that will generate a lot of attention here. Thankfully, they do have a remote beacon they can work with. But now the real question is, do you have any weapons that you can give along to your teammate who is going to be dropping in? There is the map overhead. There is the circle. As you can see, there are 6 teams who are still outside of that circle and are going to have to make their way in. They're going to be held out by the likes of Guard, the likes of Oxygen, who have been residing there for quite some time now, really playing that long game.
One team who is still alive here is NRG, but they have a tough rotation in front of them. I'm pretty sure they do have a Valkyrie to play with, though, on the hands of Gilderson, so they have the ability to redeploy. The issue for them is this team in front of them is just going to hold this line. They're going to look to poke. They're going to look to prod. And if NRG do get that a little bit wrong, then CLG will be able to just shred them out the skies. And all of a sudden, it's a 2v3 and CLG have the advantage. CLG up on this high ground as well. This is a tough place for NRG to have to win this fight from. But if anyone can do it, it's NRG.
And statistics would suggest the likes of NRG, Guard, or Complexity would be most likely to win this one just based off drop spots and where this circle is going to be going. And Guard are in one of the better positions, it does have to be said, but alongside them, Dark Zero also in a very commanding position at the moment. As we see in the kill feed, Complexity get eliminated. That's one of the prime position teams have just been wiped out, and it's Dark Zero who did get involved. As you can see, the final kill is done and dusted, and unfortunately that means Complexity, they'll have to look on and hope for the next game is going to be a bit better.
NRG still trying to work out what the next move is, trying to use the terrain. The defensive bombardment's now coming down on top of them. They're getting Valkyrie missiles, the swarm coming in as well from CLG. They also use that Nox gas. So NRG, have to say, have done a pretty good job here of actually stabilizing, considering all of the resources that CLG have thrown their way. Now NRG are going to take to the skies. Let's jump into a listening and see if they can survive.
And out to the right if possible. Go past these fences. Try to stay attached. No. Okay, I'm seal team. We gotta fight behind us. We gotta. They Valculted. Stay on me. Stay postured on me.
Okay.
Stay postured in the jump. They Valculted behind. I seal team passively. We need to walk up late. These guys are gonna get shot on the side. Start working these guys. We need angles. We need angles.
I'm on scan. I'm walking up.
Too.
Behind us,
rat. What the hell? No, they failed their Valcul. Kill these guys. We need kills.
Caustic crack on the right. On my X.
140 dead.
There's some. Nice.
I'm dead. Wait. I'm trying to crawl in. I'm gonna die. Yeah, I'm dead.
Whoa, NRG, everything seemed to be working out in their favor for just a second there. The Valkyrie ult behind them failed, but then that meant there was pressure. They thought they had a position after the Valkyrie ult initially was called. They thought they were going to be overtaken, and they'd found a safe place to play, but now you can see they're down to just one, and by the looks of things, not a lot of resources to play with either. I'm pretty sure the Sweet only had one shield cell as well, so NRG managed to find their way into the top 10, but one team who is still inside the center zone looking strong is Dark Zero.
If that was a fake Valcult to try and bait them from behind, by the way, pure genius. But, you know, I'll give them credit. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. Who knows? We'll find out as we dissect the gameplay. But 9 teams remaining. And one of those teams, Dark Zero, as you mentioned, in one of the prime positions. Optic are doing all right at the moment. They're in a good spot where they can potentially pick up some kills on those teams approaching the circle. But they themselves also have to rotate to the northeast side of this circle as well. But no other teams in front of them apart from Dark Zero. So Dark Zero is going to be their first point of contact when they get into the circle, but I think that Optic might just try and pick up some kills here as the circle closes.
Oxygen doing a little bit of damage as well. You can see God of Lost RKN. He gets finished off as well. He'll just be a death box. And now you're going to see the information gathered. I think it's Dark Zero who are just to the right of Optic Gaming here. They're actually going to decide to Valcult. And we've seen so many interesting late game plays from Optic Gaming where they just seem to find a spot to play. The question is, as they head down, they survey the land, are Optic going to be able to find that spot once more here, Dan?
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them to actually find any room to play. They're not going to be within the circle, that's for sure, but they want to get a different angle because they were so isolated in the previous position, but now they can try and fight their way out. It's going to be very difficult, but you've got Horizon Lifts to work with here.
Oh, it's just carnage, though. You can see they're trying to block a team from exiting this building. They managed to do so, and now you've got Nox doing what he does best, and that is hitting shots. Duplex, though, he's getting pushed by that ring. He's going to be forced forward. This is the end of the road for Optic. We're down to just 7 as Dark Zero stand tallest in the center of this zone once more.
Smiley and Bot also eliminated. Guard now taken out. They were in one of the better positions, but Dark Zero still kings of the land here. Center circle, surveying everything around them. Luminosity also getting eliminated. Now we're down to just 2 squads as Oxygen get wiped.
Down to just 2, and Dark Zero have just been watching this go down. Zero also gets a Kraber shot, so now G2 find themselves with just 1 player alive. It's going to be down to Jim Burton to move in and finish things off, and Dark Zero, they make the trip over to North America. They say we're not just here to compete, we're here to take over.
And they've come a decent way. Or along the map, they kind of dropped over towards Thunderwatch area. They came a little bit further from their previous region to play in North America, to be completely honest, but a very impressive victory as they found themselves center circle quite early on, but they had to hold so much room in that circle. They didn't really have a building to work with. They were just using any sort of rocks, any sort of trees, any grass that they could get behind, and it was how they were very boisterous. They postured themselves in a way that they put down enough damage that other teams were so reluctant to push up on them. They forced Optic Gaming to try and kind of Valcult, and if you can make Optic Gaming of all teams doing that, you know how well you're playing.
Yeah, I think having that Kraber in their hands certainly made the job a little bit easier as well. You saw some of those shots that were getting hit in that end game that certainly made the difference. And when you know there is a team with a Kraber, you can't peek them. You can't give them the attention that you would if they didn't have that weapon in their hands, because we know how skilled these players are. We saw it on display there. 1 peek, you try and get a little bit of extra damage down, think about taking that spot from them, and all of a sudden, you turn into a death box. So for Dark Zero, the perfect start here in game number 1, showing just great command of that center zone and how exactly you should play it.
And there were so many teams who didn't really have a good position that just played for kills in that final circle, and that's why we saw that kill feed go absolutely mental. We didn't really get to see a straight 3v3 fight happen. Instead, everyone said, well, it seems like Dark Zero may have won this game. Let's just go for a bit of KP and let's see what we can pick up here and try and pick up the pieces, whilst Dark Zero kind of sat there just kind of watching aimlessly, hoping that someone was going to die in front of them, and then they did, because the Kraber shot started to come into the equation.
Yeah, and G2, of course, picking up a second place finish there. Chaotic joining the lineup, of course. We see a little bit of a change from what was a long-standing G2 roster, who had a little bit of a disappointing end to the last season, we have to say. So that change, not too much of a surprise to see that coming in. We'll take a look at some of the highlights of that game number one, though, because it was, of course, Dark Zero who managed to close it out. But I think this thing that stood out for me was kind of the FaZe situation and that northern kind of ruckus that we saw going down, where you had FaZe, NRG, Sentinels all trying to compete for a little bit of space in and around that choke, and not everyone can fit through.
Yeah, and I think that when FaZe look back at that game, they may have realized they could have rotated a little bit sooner, but they bided their time because they thought that choke was going to be already taken up. However, it wasn't really in the early stages. There were a lot of teams on that western side of the map that rotated late in fear of other teams already being there, but that's sometimes what happens when we have, 3 different groups. When you are going to see lobbies change, is people are going to learn as they go. As you go into map number 2, as you go into match number 3, you are going to see people kind of learn the lobby a little bit more, because scrims are always going to be different. There are going to be different teams that feature. Your drop spot might be a little bit different. Your route might be a little bit different, so it's very difficult to try and analyze going into game number 1, but game 2 is usually where you should have learned things.
Yeah, I'd like to find out if the call from CLG was to fake Valcol or if it was a failed Valcol. I think that would be a very, very interesting thing to get the answer to that decision. We'll have to go back on the VOD and watch that one back for sure to be 100%, because this was the difference, right? NRG, they thought they'd kind of lucked out for a second, finding themselves in that spot where they're going to be Valcolted over. But it wasn't the case. They ended up with getting flanked by CLG, who then unfortunately went down immediately. But these last moments, this is where we saw Dark Zero really take advantage of the space they had created. And when you've got Jim Burton running at you, I don't care if you're 1 player or 2 players, you know you're going to take a huge amount of damage. And it is Dark Zero with 20 points in game number 1, who stand tallest at the top of the leaderboards.
And a lot of those kills came at the end for Dark Zero. It's teams like the Guard who are getting the early kills that finds them still quite high up in the points total. G2 also getting a fair amount of kills, considering they finished second place. I think they'll be delighted with that. Of course, it would have been a much higher total had they won the game, because they would have got 3 extra. There's a few teams that were able to just kind of bide their way through the game. Not too much kills on the board, but still plenty of placements. But one biggest difference we've noticed from the EMEA region over towards NA was the kills kind of seem to be more spread around North America, and we can see that happening here as well. Everyone on the leaderboard in the top 10 getting their fair share of kills.
It's just crazy to look at these leaderboards, and just keep in the back of your mind as well, there's only 9 automatic qualification spots as well to play on. You're seeing the likes of 100 Thieves, 0 points, Space Station, 0 points, FaZe, 0 points, and yeah, it's only game number 1, there's 5 games to go, but all of a sudden, with the amount of game days that there are, the amount of opportunities there are to score points, every game, Dan, is becoming more and more big as we just roll through each day and each week of action.
And I can't stress enough how important that game 1 can be sometimes, because as I mentioned, people and teams will learn as you go in these lobbies. So sometimes match number 1 can be a little bit of a freebie that you can take advantage of, maybe some poor rotations or lack of knowledge from a couple of teams. But that is how everything looks after match number 1. Dark Zero, 20 points, G2 16 behind them, and then the Guard and Bots will share 3rd place at the moment. But still, of course, plenty to play for here, Mark.
Well, it is going to be Dark Zero who do take home our game number 1 on Stormpoint. The question is, will they be able to recreate something that Ascend did a little bit earlier on and go back to back as we head into our second game? It's time for us to jump back, everybody, to the North American Pro League here in the Apex Legends Global Series. And game number 1, like I mentioned, won by the Aussie boys who have made the long trip over to compete in North America. Dark Zero, of course, taking home game number 1. And as we head towards game number 2, my question to you, Dan, is are we going to see a different style of play here? Because that zone was pretty difficult for a lot of teams to coexist, to, cohabit? I'm really struggling with my English today.
Cohabitable?
Cohabitable. There wasn't a lot of areas to play where there was buildings, Dan, is what I'm trying to say. And we saw a little bit of more of an edge kind of fight game. I don't know where I'm going with this. You know what I'm trying to say. Dan, do you know what? You're going to have to save me here. Help me. It's getting late over here already.
Can someone check on Mark,
Somebody
please?
check on me.
I don't know who I'm talking to. I think she's
It's 1:30
asleep.
a.m.
Anyway, I agree. I think that it was a difficult final circle to try and navigate because of the lack of space at times.
That's
but there
what
was
I was
also
trying to
plenty
say.
of buildings.
That was all I was trying to say.
There was plenty of buildings in the previous circle, but then as soon as we get into the final circle, it's just open ground. There's a lot of rocks, there's lots of trees, and it's honestly down to Dark Zero and how they played and how much space they were able to cover with just 3 players. They were spread out in a bit of a triangle. They had the Kraber to work with as well. They were obviously kind of striking fear into their opponent's eyes. No one really wanted to push up on them. So everyone else was kind of hunkered down in corners. You saw Optic Gaming make a late rotation, fail their rotation, and then just engage in a fight just to try and get anything, try and save something from that lobby. But a lot of the teams had to do the same on set, because when you are in a struggling situation where you know you're not going to get into one of those priority positions, you have to play for KP. And it could be very similar if we get a circle here. We know how much circles influence how playstyle is going to work, and of course how those endgames are going to look.
Okay, well, thank you for talking, because it gave me a few moments just to reset my brain, because for a few seconds there, not everything was working in sync. It was pretty obvious. But now, I'm pleased to announce that it seems like I've found my marbles and we're getting back together. So let's talk about game number 2 here, Dan. Back onto Storm Point, of course. It was our Aussie friends who came over and managed to take game number 1. And now we're going to have to see if someone else can take that away. Will North America be able to wrestle back their own region and Pro League here?
And it is quite funny that I said they travelled further to play in North America than they did in-game. But it's true. I mean, from Thunderwatch to Cascade Falls-ish, it's not that far. I think last week we saw the furthest anyone travelled to win a game was 2 POIs away from each other. That was TSM, went from the wall to kind of mid-map to win one of the games last week. So we're still seeing a similar pattern in that you drop close-ish in circles, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to keep harping on about it because it is emerging more so than it did in Champs last season. But it's whether anyone can disrupt that pattern. Can we see someone truly have a game of all games where they just run through the entire lobby and then still get a victory with hundreds of KP? Of course, I am over-exaggerating, but it is possible. We do have teams that are capable of playing that way.
Well, Dark Zero is such a fascinating team. You know, the fact that they essentially are just absolute superstars in their own region, and a lot of the time we see it, right, in competitive esports, and I mean this with all due respect to the Apex South region, where some of the teams who dominate over in the, you would say, smaller regions comparatively to the likes of EMEA and, of course, North America, struggle on that main stage. But Dark Zero are an outlier, I think, in all of esports. The fact that they dominated the LAN environment, they won 2 back-to-back LANs, which is absolutely insane, and then they move over to North America and don't miss a beat, Dan. It's fascinating to me to see how talented these 3 are. And a very quick story. I remember walking into 2 of them in the lobby of the ALGS Championships, and let me tell you, after day 1, they were not happy. They did not sound like a team that was going to go on to win the whole thing. So it just shows that maybe a little mental reset is something that they're not too afraid of themselves.
Well, one word we always talk about is consistency. And having that kind of consistency in any battle royale across LAN events and then transitioning to another region in online events is crazy. And as you say, I think it will go down in history when we look back at Apex Legends and what teams have been able to achieve if they do find this same success in North America. We've seen players do it in different regions maybe, but an entire team moving across, it really is going to change the way that people look at the region in general and also what Dark Zero can achieve.
Dan,
go on.
We have a Revenant in the lobby. Lou is playing Revenant, everybody. Sentinels are getting spicy here. I wonder if this is a tech pick, a little bit of an influence coming in from him, maybe?
Tech does like to go a little bit off meta sometimes, doesn't he? He does like to define metas with some of his decisions that we've seen previously when he was coaching other teams and also playing a little bit as well. But yeah, a Revenant is going to be interesting. I kind of ignored it because they were just shooting bots on the screen. I didn't think anything important was happening, but you quite rightly highlighting it. Again, that comes back to legend selection and how we are seeing such a variety of legends featuring in Pro League right now. But are we going to see it make a difference? Maybe they've noticed that this lobby is a little bit more vulnerable to an aggressive comp, and I'm looking forward to see whether they can take advantage of it here.
Yeah, I feel sorry for the first team that runs into Sentinels as they're running towards them in Revenant form and causing all sorts of carnage. For Optic Gaming, they would like a little bit more of a quiet game. However, when they see a spot they want to take, they're not afraid to put their best foot forward and put that aggressive stance forward. Team Liquid are going to be the team that are inside this building at the moment trying to hold off Optic. So a lot of fighting going down already at the start of this game. Two teams who love the God Spot. At the moment, they're going to have to fight for it.
Yeah, Liquid backing off ever so slightly once the nades came towards them. Very intelligent play just to avoid any easy damage, but it is going to be kind of wall-to-wall action here, or should I say door-to-door action as it gets burst down. The castle wall will go in its place, and instead of a door, you've got an angle that you can actually take now if you want.
Castle wall put down. A little bit of a gap there. I was worried there might be a straight couple of bullets just flying through and tickling Fun in a way that he didn't want to be. But for now, Optic look like they're on the back foot here. Skillcakes is having to retreat. He's down to about 5 HP. Noct is also extremely weak. Manages to get that battery off. But you can see this building is a kind of building where it's difficult to coexist due to the fact that there are so many different angles. There's so many different doorways. And you're going to see Team Liquid now, who look like they were in the ascendancy, all of a sudden have to rethink this fight. It's 2v2 on the map. There's another player down. As Sykes now moves in, the new addition to this lineup, doing the damage required.
This fight's going on a long time, though, and other teams are definitely going to be hearing all of this noise. You need to wrap this up pronto if you are either side. The res now potentially coming through, and we will see Team Liquid, and unfortunately, the Revenant team has arrived, and they want to get involved. They heard the noise, and as all Revenant teams do, they get the third party.
I was going to say, Apex Legends, as we all know, it is a horror game in disguise sometimes, and when you see 3 Revenant shadows falling from the sky, it becomes even more scary. And now Complexity decide they want to get involved. Optic Gaming out first in this lobby. They rolled the dice a little bit here to see if they could get that God Spot away from Team Liquid, but Liquid held the ground, and now Complexity are finding this isn't the most comfortable places to be as well.
NRG, Xenox, Oxygen, Complexity, Guard, they're all within each other at the moment. They're all in a little bit of a bubble, and you've got to be very careful if you step 1 foot wrong, if you show a little bit too much skin to those who are watching you from outside. They're definitely going to make it count. They will get that damage, and then it just implodes, Mark. When you start to hear and you start to see knocks happening, everyone wants to get a little bit of a piece of that action.
At the moment, it looks like it's ring around the rosy between all the teams inside of this building. They just can't find each other. Complexity want to be aggressive. The only problem is they can't find anyone. That's because Team Liquid are on the outside of the building. They've said, we have had enough of this shenanigans that's going down, and we want to try and get out of here. And I think they just about managed to do so. And when it's all said and done, and finally we can catch our breath after what has been a whirlwind start, Liquid are out of there, and it will be Complexity who become kings of the castle.
One thing I just really want to highlight on this pretty nerdy thing is just that castle wall on that door. It blocks off a guaranteed angle because you have to do a lot more to break a castle wall than you do a door. So the time it takes to break the castle wall, it's very unlikely the opposition team is going to actually try and break through. So you almost force the other team you're fighting to go a certain way and restrict access to the room. So a very intelligent and quick thinking play from Team Liquid. The fact that they've survived and escaped is pretty unreal considering the amount of teams came in, and bear in mind the Revenant squad came in as well. It's amazing they've been able to get away.
Yeah, they're probably thinking, do you know what? I like it over here. It's a lot more quiet over here. And,
meditation can happen.
Exactly. Just a little bit of deep breathing, a little bit of belly breathing can now occur. They also have the banner as well, so they should be able to get a res at some point. Luminosity Gaming currently paying the entry fee to Jurassic Park here as they go in through the doors and make their rotation. They're a little bit further out from all of this carnage that started to go down, so they will be probably thinking what is happening in this lobby as they see some of the big names already fighting early on in that kill feed. Of course, anonymous mode is on. They won't know who is exactly in those fights till they're eliminated, but seeing Optic fall first usually gives a good indication that they were fighting for a spot they thought was best.
Well, look where Dark Zero are. Dead center of that circle once more as we move southwest. It seems to keep pulling towards Cenote Cave, but Luminosity trying to maybe get involved in some action here. They cracked some shields, and sometimes that can be the indication to full-on send it, and it looks like they are going to keep going, try and get aggressive on this team.
Well, Luminosity now, you can see trying to put some pressure on. One team who's feeling pressure right now is going to be slept on. They've lost a player, and that is going to be the finish coming in now from Luminosity. You're looking to hunt down these final 2 players. 34 damage from the scout is going to be good enough to maybe give them access to cross without taking too much damage, as the other team is going to be retreating instead of trying to hold the line. G2 also, after that second place finish in our game number 1, are going to be in that kill feed as well. That slept on eliminated, so Luminosity moving in to finish off the pieces, but I think the G2 are in the vicinity here. They have to be careful.
Yeah, a lot of teams that are close to one another, they're in the vicinity of, if you kind of get knocked, you're probably doomed at this point. You can't really take a straight 3v3 if you are within the circle, looking at where all the teams reside. There's a few teams still hovering outside of that circle. One of those teams is FaZe, by the way. Remember, they had a difficult game number 1, and here they go. They are on the move. They are deciding to take to the skies to rotate just past the mill and where this circle potentially could be finishing. But are they just going to have to take a fight here?
FaZe going to land, and they're going to be safe for now, but there is a team, I think, inside of this building. So FaZe, even though they're safe, they're still outside of zone, and also they've got a Seer ultimate down as well, which is going to give their position away, or maybe they're looking to try and find the position of Rack Attack. Is it a FaZe ultimate? I'm pretty sure it is, so that's going to give them the information that they need. Bowser is also going to be in a position here on the roof to maybe rain down a little bit of fire with that G7 scout, but for now, both teams trying to wait out this ultimate, making sure that they don't give any information to the other.
Also a direct mirror match when it comes to composition as well, so you know exactly what the other team is capable of once you do see which legends you're going to be going up against, but maybe they don't necessarily realize it yet because they haven't actually seen each other, even though they are in the same vicinity and they notice one another and they saw the footsteps on the Seer monitor. It's actually whether you're going to be able to do anything here. But as Rack Attack notice someone else has joined them in their vicinity, we'll see how the listening is and how the communication goes and what their plan is next.
We can go down to like plan.
Flying on my right? It's still on low ground, still on low ground.
Just heat zone, heat zone.
They probably think that we're gonna live on zone. I'm gonna break that door.
Yeah, I had 4 syringes. What happened? Kraber,
Yeah,
Kraber on the top of the rock.
on the rock.
Me.
Yeah.
Right.
I got hit. I'm gonna die. I'm dead.
Rather than immediately.
Hey, how about no more jumping today?
We need to go down to the building when you're ready.
Yeah.
Like, when you're healthy. I'm gonna ult them so we can make the cross.
Are they still here? Once you hit that syringe.
Yeah. No, they're not. They're all south. They're south, like over here somewhere.
The Kraber
Please let me
team's there. That
reset.
Kraber team actually kills us. I think we have to full heal on top
No,
wall.
I ult them and we go down left.
Okay,
Down.
but the building's not in is the problem. I guess it kind of is.
I'm going now.
There we go.
Go wreck. Building's clear. Get in here.
If you get Kraber, you die.
I'm in. Hey, we're safe inside.
We need to get to the spider cave so we have some space. Once you get next bubble one.
We're jumping back into the game here, Danny. You see the Rack Attack managed to hold off the push that came in from FaZe. They ate a bit of zone to see if they could wait and bait FaZe out. Bots will be eliminated in the meantime. We're down to 17.
17, but only about 8 I could see that are actually in the next circle. I mean, Sentinels should be in the perfect position because they pretty much dropped where this circle is going. Guard also were in a similar spot, and NRG. Those are the 3 teams I'm going to be looking out for to try and win this game. But what are the teams who are outside of that circle really going to do? Where can they pick up the points to try and push them up the leaderboards? Because the likelihood of them winning, of course, is decreased so much so by the fact that they are rotating so late and how heavy it has been on early rotations in this season. But there is still a lot to do for those teams who try and move in. There still could be plenty of KP, G2 being one of those teams, and from what I've heard, Designful went pretty nuts towards the end of Game 1. We may not have seen it on our screen, but definitely go back, check his POV, because there were some disgusting shots he was hitting.
Well, now he's going to have to hit some more. You can see the Bloodhound ultimate was popped as well, so it means they're going to get aggressive. They're trying to push. They have to, because they only have 15 seconds or so until that zone starts to close behind them, and that is really going to chunk away at that health. So G2 force to make the move. Their hand is forced, so to speak, and now they look like they've done enough damage to at least clear a path forward. But this isn't the end of the road for them. You can see with round 3 about to close, G2 need to keep moving forward here, and the difficulty for them is they've got multiple teams from multiple angles, so this is a tough mood, and they don't have Valkyrie either.
Yeah, they're going to be running into a Dark Zero squad that's going to be holding them out as well. Like, if it couldn't get any worse, the team that previously won and the team that is currently on fire is going to be looking straight at you after you get past the team you can already see in front of them. So it is literally gladiators right now. You get past one beast, and unfortunately you have to face the wolf at the end.
It is literally the gauntlet, so to speak, and G2 are finding that out right now. Designful will go down. Chaotic will get a trade at least to turn it into a 2v2. He should have another one here. He could get all three. G2 survived. Team Smiley taken down, but can G2 get access to zone in time? Chaotic should be able to get this battery off. Can they get up to that high ground? Can they force their way into zone without getting any kind of line of sight? It looks like G2 somehow have managed to do so.
Dark Zero around the corner, though.
Oh
there
my
are Dark
goodness.
Zero. And Dark Zero maybe get caught unaware here. Didn't really notice G2 were going to be creeping up on them. And G2 might be able to take advantage of this, but they have to play it correctly because they are just a 2 right now.
Well, it's big damage coming in, and Dark Zero, game 1 was great. Game 2, not so good. G2 get revenge. It was first and second from game number 1, matching up much earlier in the lobby this time. And it's G2 who come out on top, and even more impressive, they didn't even have Designful alongside them.
G2, the Iron Sight heroes. They did it in game 1. I saw in the text chat they were saying maybe we should use Iron Sights more often because of what Designful pulled off, and it looks like in game 2, it's working out for them as well. Without any sort of scope, they were ripping through other teams, and it really does show no matter what is in your hands, you can still get it done if you are good enough, but Resulta has just been taken down, so G2 may be on their way out here.
I was going to say, Iron Sights are great, Kraber better. Kraber better than everything.
Kraber
And,
win.
unfortunately, G2 are finding that out right now. You can also see in the kill feed as well that Abralele has gone down from FaZe. It's Team Liquid who are still alive. Remember, take yourselves back to right at the start of this game where Team Liquid somehow almost survived the zombie apocalypse inside of that building to get out, and now Liquid are involved in this end zone. So what a comeback this has been, Dan. 15 squads remaining, and look at the position they have as well.
And again, it just comes down to those smart decisions to avoid those fights, to stay alive long enough where they could make the decision. And also, they got helped out a little bit by other teams arriving, but they still were able to pull that magic trick and get out, as you say. Guard have just lost a couple of players. They were in one of the better positions. LG also losing people at the right now. There were so many fights happening around the map as FaZe seem to just be alive in a little bush, trying desperately just to creep into this circle.
Snipe down and Slurp left on their own. Abralele taken down, so no Gibraltar for them to play with. So moving across that open ground is going to be much more difficult. With Snipe down, using that passive, the heartbeat sensor, just to see if he can get any information on where teams are going to be. They do have the ability to Valkyrie redeploy if they need to. However, I'm interested to see if they try and climb up and get to the height of this rock, but with Oxygen up on top of it, it would be somewhat of a surprise to see them try and risk that. So I wouldn't be surprised here if we see FaZe just try and survive as long as possible, try and show as little presence as they can, because you know the Oxygen is going to be aware of where they are.
Yeah, so important you get as many placements as possible, as we saw in week 1 and of course earlier in the EMEA region as well. But circle is going to be closing. A lot to do for these teams who are still outside of it, and I can count about 6 are still outside out of the 13 right now. So carnage about to unfold on our screens as everyone approaches what seems to be very little playing area when you look at actually what is available in front of you.
I mean, did you see the upgrade that Oxygen got there? Put the low bolt down. The black market provides them with a full gold G7 Scout, and that means that one player can drop the Scout for another. One's got a fully upgraded one, and they should be able to do a huge amount of damage. Speaking of which, here comes Sentinels, the team who are running Revenant, and they are involved in some big fights. Lou gets a big armor swap as well. Xenox is down, but they are still alive. Rack Attack down, first attempt down, and it looks like Sentinels survive inside of this building. The totem will go down, Death Protection arrives, and Lou is doing everything he can to do as much damage to everybody in the vicinity.
I mean, Lou is shredding damage in the moment, but surely it's all going to come to an end. It will. 10th place is where Sentinels finish. They were in one of the better positions, but it seems like a lot of teams want this building, wanting to take it off them, and they were almost forced to do so as well, because as I said, such little areas to play with in this next circle that as teams walked up, they inevitably would end up right under Sentinels' nose, and it was NRG who eventually win the fight of this building.
Right, NRG do what NRG do, which is almost go anonymous for a lot of the game, and then all of a sudden a fight breaks out towards the end game for a priority position, and NRG are the team who make the fight happen, and it so often finishes in their favor. So with 9 squads now remaining, you see CLG down on the bottom of this building, NRG up on top. 2 teams with 3 letters in the names, but for both of them, unfortunately, it looks like only one will be able to leave this building safely.
And look where that circle's going. No teams in that next circle at the moment. It is in such open space. I'd argue Team Liquid actually in one of the best positions because they are the northern side of this circle. They'll have a little bit of high ground to work with, a little bit of rocks that they can hide behind. Also, 100 Thieves maybe could be in one of the better spots as well on the northeast side of this circle, whereas all these southern teams are going to have to fight each other as they try and escape this building of death.
NRG getting flanked here. NRG down to just 1, and Sweet hasn't got pretty much anything to play with here. The zone closes in. The zone takes down NRG, but CLG fall as well. Space Station, one of our top 7 squads now, trying to make their way towards zone. Frex is down, and Frex is out, so they'll have to try and see this one out as a 2.
And we have seen 100 Thieves make their way to center circle as all the other teams are just playing edge at the moment. Oxygen have lost 1. Still alive, though, can still do a lot of damage, but they drop right behind a castle wall. FaZe just got eliminated. NPL also out. 5 squads now remaining. Complexity at a full 3. Also in a really good spot. Full red armor, and they've got plenty of vantage points to work with.
And no one's looking at Complexity at the moment. They have the high ground. They are doing so much damage as Oxygen Esports now find themselves being eliminated. And this is where Monsoon does what Monsoon does best. He has multiple targets, nobody taking the challenge, and he can just fry.
But we still have Team Liquid. Team Liquid now will get involved in this fight because they see the knock happening. Remember, Team Liquid right at the start of this game, what a struggle. They escaped, but now they could potentially pull off a victory here if they can get the knocks.
Shiny trying to move in here to finish off this fight. Will be able to do so. 100 Thieves, they will be down, but look at Liquid rising from the dead. It looked like this game was over for them, but at the end of the game, when the game is over, Team Liquid are the team who stand tallest. That is a great example of resilience and knowing that at the end, even though your game might not look like it's in the best of shape at the start, if you can survive and you can get back in towards that end game, you can make things work. Team Liquid looking extremely strong as we bring Fallout back in to talk about this one. Because, John, Team Liquid, I mean, ridiculous. Literally coming from nowhere, surviving, and then coming back to have the final laugh. I mean, absolutely crazy stuff.
Absolutely. An insane game indeed. Thank you so much, Onset. Look, we're going to break things down as we give Gaskin a chance to breathe, a little bit of a breather, a little bit of a break for Dan. But Onset, you're spot on, mate. So much to discuss, so much to talk through. Team Liquid was in shambles, barely got away by the hair on their chinny chin chins with that Valk ult from the building of death, as you called it, from the zombie apocalypse, as you called it, which is really what it was. Complexity came hunting. The fact that they were able to survive, get the res, and then end up winning the game is just Team Liquid doing Team Liquid things, truly.
Yeah, it really is, and there's almost like a little bit of poetry, right, about the fact that it was Complexity they end up taking down.
That's true.
In that final fight as well. Complexity, the team who were obviously, after Optic came in with the aggressors and seemed to win that building from Team Liquid and force them out into that Valkyrie ultimate and to look for the res and get back into a full 3. So Liquid showing that they can get it done in a number of ways. They can get center zone, they can find the building, they know where they want to play from, but also, even if you kind of move Team Liquid along a little bit, you evict them from the building they find themselves in, they're always going to come back, and they're always going to there's going to be a tax to pay if you let Liquid live.
Yeah, that's a great point. They show they can play through adversity and off their back foot. Really well played from TL right there. But I'm interested to see the standings here in a moment because Team Liquid, yeah, they took first, but Complexity was frying Onset. The amount of kills that they surely must have gotten in that game. We'll take a look here in just a moment, but a really solid game from Complexity as well. One thing I'm also loving is, again, we talk about it often, but how many different legends we're seeing. Revenant in the hands of Sentinels. We thought we'd see a lot more diversity in legend comps in EMEA, but no. The truth is, some way, somehow, NA has actually managed to one-up them, which is crazy. Let's take a look at the highlights here. We'll see a little bit of Sentinels in their Revenant pick. We'll see some Loba in the hands of Oxygen and Team Liquid.
Yeah, we will indeed. There was, like you say, it's the constant kind of evolving meta game in Apex Legends, right? It's like, okay, everyone else is playing this. Who can we pick that's a little bit off that's going to cause people problems? That's why you're seeing Revenant come back into things, right? When you're seeing teams start to fortify buildings, when you're seeing those defensive walls go down from Newcastle, when you're seeing the Watson fences all of a sudden go up, what's going to break through that? What gives you a free push to do damage? It's going to be Revenant. So it's almost like a outside of the box thinking, trying to get ahead of the game once more that could work out in a very positive way here for Sentinels. This game wasn't the game for them, but I've got to say, G2, they looked like they were in a horrible position here. Somehow, though, managed to come out of it and survive, and also took down Dark Zero on their way towards zone.
And honestly, they had no business doing so because they were in a horrible position. That looked like they absolutely were, but it was just chaotic much making the difference with 180 to 200 damage. Him and Resulta went huge in that scenario, but they got taken out soon after. Speaking of taken out, MPL fell in 7th. It was Oxygen, though. With the Loba pickup, they got the fully kitted G7 Scout, which helped them. In the end, though, it was Complexity and Team Liquid. Team Liquid last to the fight, and they got the dub, but a monstrous game from Complexity. Fairly high kills overall, I believe. 6 to 8 kills for Complexity. Team Liquid takes first. So let's take a look at the match results here. 18 points matched for first and second.
Yeah, first and second place, you can see the placement points for Liquid adding it up to give them their total, but it is the kills that add up for Complexity to give them 18 points as well. 100 Thieves, a very good performance from them, as we saw inside of that final zone. 7 points on the board for them, but I think you're looking at the way that Complexity played that game was very interesting to me as well. The fact that they weren't afraid to do what Complexity do when they play at their best, and that is be aggressive. That is force fights. My only thing with them maybe in that final moment, Monsoon, you can see the adrenaline's flying through him. He wants to finish off every fight. There's almost too many options in front of him where he was trying to kill too much at once. If they would have played a little bit tighter in that end game, maybe they would have had a chance to take home first place. But I think overall, Complexity will be very, very happy with that performance in game 1.
Yeah,
Game 2,
agreed.
excuse me.
Very, very solid performance from Complexity. They are certainly back. The pickup of Luxfer has been great for them. It's good to see Monsoon and a shiny fragging again. But let's take a look at the overall series results here. G2, a surprising G2 in first place because they went out fairly early in that last game, but the amount of kills that they're able to pick up game over game, it's safe to say that G2 is potentially back as well on set. They have been playing so well, and just look, rising from the ashes. Sentinels in 12th. G2 in first, and then Complexity in fourth. 3 heavy-hitting, once great, once dominant teams that didn't qualify for champs, certainly back to relevancy here, playing really, really well with some adjustments that they made in the offseason.
Yeah, and I think the adjustments are the things to focus on, right? Even though you may have had success previously with a lineup, you cannot be afraid at the top level with only, like I mentioned, only 9 direct qualification spots to kind of, you don't have the time to, if things aren't going well, to not make a change. And I think G2 making that change with Chaotic coming onto this team,
exactly.
It's not just a player that you add, it's just a refresh for everyone, right? In a little different opinion, the little arguments that might have happened before maybe don't happen because you got a new player on, and all these little things kind of add up, right? And G2 is showing that maybe they found the formula once again for success here. Second place in that first game, good points on the board means that overall they're at the top of the leaderboards, and G2 look dangerous.
Yeah, but first place with 24 points, if I saw that correctly, that means the points are very well distributed as well. So anyone's game, anyone's tournament here at this point. And look, at the end of the day, you're right about Chaotic Much. He might not know how to use a laundry machine. Check Designful's Twitter, but he can certainly use an R301. And we saw that right there. Kudos to G2 and Chaotic Much, the Brit making his way over to the US alongside the Aussies, the Dark Zero squad making their way to the US. We're going to take a quick break, though. What a series this has been so far. We knew it would be so incredibly heavy, hitted, and loaded. And actually, take that back. No breaks. We don't need breaks here. We're going to jump into game number 3. We're going to welcome Gaskin back here in just a moment. But again, what a very solid series this is because there's so many teams, so much top talent on set across the board here. And that's why we're seeing such a distributed leaderboard.
Yeah, we certainly are. And it's not like we saw in EMEA earlier where Ascend started to be the point sponge, right? And everyone else is kind of playing for second place. Every single team in this lobby is picking up points at some point along the way, whether it's a few kills here or there, whether it's a few placement points here or there. It is a battle and it is a war to get towards the top of that leaderboard. Optic tried to make a really brave play in that game number 2 as well, which is a very Optic play to do. They see the God spot. They see an opportunity for a 3v3. They look to take it. The difference is it was Team Liquid who were already there. And Team Liquid, we've seen what a strong fighting comp they have become and what a strong fighting unit that they've become. So Optic not being able to just bully teams out anymore is really starting to show, and it's affecting Optic standing in the leaderboards.
Yeah, that's a good point. Optic looked great this week in the MFAM Gauntlet tournament and other tournaments as well, but not necessarily the best Pro League showing from them. But hey, as we're waiting for the lobby to load here for game number 3, let's take a look at the final circle and last few moments from game number 2. Again, it was Team Liquid last to the party.
They certainly did, and it was Complexity who seemed to have such a great position here, right? We're down to 4 squads. You can see Complexity make the play call to swing right, but also you're going to see a situation here where Complexity maybe get a little bit too kill hungry. Monsoon picks up a couple, and then they might have seen the opportunity just to catch this team off guard, but then there, you see the flick of the wrist from Monsoon, realizing maybe he's got himself in a little bit too deep of water here, manages to get out with that armor swap, but I think that was maybe the moment where, unfortunately, Monsoon kind of wanted to finish things quickly. Maybe it was a call where everyone didn't go at the same time, or maybe it was just a little bit of an overextension, but it just opened the door for Team Liquid. They moved in from that high ground, picked up those final moments, and the man who went down first in all of that fight right at the start was Fun. He gets back in, he gets the final PK shot to close it out.
Yeah, Team Liquid entered that fight at the perfect moment, just like Gaskin just entered this broadcast at the perfect moment. Welcome back, Gaskin.
Thank you very much. I don't think I took full advantage of my break. I'm going to be honest. I stayed sat here listening to you, watching the same thing. I was told I probably should have taken a bathroom break or something, but here I am, not taking advantage of my breaks. It's fine. I'm happy.
Probably would have been a good day.
You're hard working.
I'm working so hard, doing the tokens and stuff. No, it's good. Honestly, what an amazing end to that game, by the way. I didn't really get to round up my thoughts because I was so quickly whisked away to my break.
Non-existent break.
Yeah. But
the break you didn't have or didn't take.
the fact that Liquid were able to win that game, I know they dropped relatively close, and I know I've been talking about statistics and blah blah, but Liquid defied all statistics there with how they played, how they avoided all that fight, and then they still got into one of the best positions. Unreal. I can't wait to go and watch that one back just from Liquid's point of view, just to see how they navigated the map and the way they did.
At Loba, Black Market in late game, so incredibly effective. We've seen it twice now from Oxygen and from Team Liquid. But guess what? Match 3 is ready. The dropship is flying across Storm Point. Last game on Storm Point. Onsit, Gaskin, take the action.
Let's get it. Let's get into this game. Dan, you should be fully refreshed now after your 8-second break. Let's talk about this next game because we have seen how the points have been distributed, and G2 is the team we really should be focusing on, right? Yes, we just saw a kind of monumental Phoenix from the Ashes type performance from Team Liquid winning that previous game, but when we look at that leaderboards, it's G2 have been picking up placement and KP to put them top of the pile.
Yeah, I thought you called it. I thought I heard you say.
What's impressive is just how well G2 have been fighting. Not just as a team, but also the individual skill that we're seeing on display. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less, right? That's what G2 have always been so successful with, is some of their gun skill, but the fact that they were able to make their way from barometer, or as I used to call it, barometer, they have been able to transfer across the map so successful. Yes, okay, they didn't pick up the victory in either of those games, but they did get a lot of KP.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real here. We called it C-Note K for long enough as well. God, this, the language is tough for everybody. It's Cenote, we've learned. A barometer sounds like something that's it's an instrument used to measure the size of a wheelbarrow, by the way. We'll have to see if that is actually true. Someone maybe in the chat can let me know. But Team Liquid, let's see what you got once again. A great performance to them in game number 2. And I love, one of my favorite things is when you see a little bit of poetry in these games, right? Poetry in esports. And Fun being the first player down, hits the last shot to win the game. It makes me happy, Dan. It makes my heart warm.
It really is nice that a player who probably thought their game was over, right? Done, dusted, they're out of the game, probably just stressing, thinking the team is going to be out, and then later you get to be the one who finish things off. Yeah, that's going to be a nice feeling as an individual. But I think Team Liquid will look at that game and the success that they just had. They'll be thanking their lucky stars and their lucky charms, whatever you want to thank, the fact that they got out of that fight. But it was the decision-making to kind of play it in the way, to stall in the way they did, which ended up saving them, to be honest. That castle wall just on that one doorway to prevent the team pushing them, to prevent Optic from having that angle, it all adds up to the way they were able to win that game after the early fight they had.
Well, Team Liquid this time, a little bit more of a quiet start to the game for them. And as they try and ping the spot that they want to play, and as they try and kind of decide how they want to approach this game, it'll be a little bit difficult for them to force their way into the God spot, so to speak, inside of that center zone due to the fact of where this zone is going to be pulling. But for the team who's currently top of the leaderboards, G2, this is a great zone for them over at Barometer. Like you mentioned, we might be going a little bit further south, so to speak, and we'll have to see if Shipfall is where we end up kind of pulling towards. But for G2, they haven't got a lot of distance to go. And the great thing about being set up at Barometer as well, with the zone the way it is you have such extreme height that all these teams that are going to be rotating in, you're going to be able to level up those Evo shields so easily before you make a last assault in that zone.
Now, I will say we've messed up Barometer, we've messed up Cenote Cave, but we do have to be careful with Shipfall as Englishman, because it very easily can sound like something else.
That's what we call a career ender.
I myself have been very close, it would seem at times. People have been like, have you been saying that word? No, I haven't. I've been saying ship with a P at the end, I promise you. But yeah, this is going to be an ending where those teams who are dropping at the south side of the map are going to be sitting pretty for quite some time. Those who are on the northern side, this is going to be such a struggle for them. You've got to get quite far across the map before you eventually maybe go for a Valkyrie to get even further. As I say it happens. Dark Zero are going to be making their way now with the Valkyrie Ultimate.
Yeah, just outside of Antenna at the moment. They're just to the northeast of Antenna. They'll be flying right over the top of it. Team Liquid will be waving at them, as at the moment the sky is getting a little bit congested. Different areas of the map, of course. But we are going to see Complexity now move towards Shipfall. They're going to be trying to get on the back side of it, the low ground, and maybe thinking about that zone pulling right down towards the south. And if it does, they're going to be in a really good position to fight in. last quite some time in this end zone. However, you can see a little bit of information being collected means there's multiple teams already in the area, but Complexity find a soft landing for now. Question is, can they stabilize? Can they get those heals off? And have they got the inventory as well to survive the long game too? You can see 14 cells in the hands of Monsoon is certainly going to help, but that gen from Watson is also going to be vital for them surviving that long game.
Yeah, they're going to be sitting pretty for quite some time. Complexity, I think they'll be very happy with that rotation. I guess it's time we could talk about those teams who haven't really popped off yet, and maybe we were expecting them to. Optic have been relatively quiet, you know, an early game fight that they lost previously, and also not the best of game ones either, even though they did feature in kind of the final circle. Are we going to see a little bit more from them in game number 3, or is World's Edge going to maybe treat them a little bit better? Some teams just perform worse on Storm Point, but I would expect more from Optic Gaming, to be honest, with how good they are in these team fights, but maybe the meta not quite working in their favor at the moment, but I'm pretty sure they will adjust very quickly as we get further into these games.
Yeah, it's the great thing, again, about a constantly evolving metagame, right? With buffs and changes, and not only to weapons, but also legends, and how people try and, you know, combat each other, counteract the successes of other teams, is that you are going to see teams have these, you know, these peaks and these troughs in their performances, in their form, so to speak, as they have to adjust to how the lobby now approaches things. And even though it's only 2 games, and don't get me wrong, Optic still an absolute powerhouse team, and 2 games of Apex not quite going your way is not something that anyone should be ashamed of course. They still will have something to think about here with 4 games to go, and especially with 1 game here left on Storm Point. It hasn't been the best of performances, like you mentioned, but if anyone could do it, Optic, they've dropped 20-point games before, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them do it again here in game 3.
And that would go against, you know, the stats that we've really seen so far in Pro League. We haven't seen North American teams get those big games. Instead, it's been everyone kind of sharing the spoils when it comes to kills. Very different in the EMEA region, where we were seeing the likes of Ascend today absolutely pop off and destroy the entire lobby and really mopping up those points. It was very close in kind of the mid-table. However, it is kind of close across the whole board here in North America, because everyone is still finding a way of claiming points even in their worst games. And what I mean by worst games is like the Circle not really playing their way, or they have a poor rotation, or they find themselves getting challenged early in the drop spot. A variety of things that can really influence your finish to a game, and it's about making the best situation out of a bad one, really, and that's where we're going to see the teams progress. You know, those 9 squads who can get out of the North American region into playoffs. It's going to be so tough, because it could be 1 week.
Every time you say it out loud, it's just like...
It's not enough. It feels like it's not enough with how many good teams we see. But some teams, some of the best teams in the world, will not feature because they don't get into that top 9. And, you know, it could come down to a couple of bad matches. Even though, you know, 2 matches doesn't seem that much. But imagine if you miss out on a playoff spot because you are 2 points behind someone.
Bowser. Oh, my goodness. He's going to be safe. Of course, he was never going to be a real problem for him, but I was a little bit worried that it was going to be one of those awkward moments where you go down to zone. A couple of meds are going to be crafted by Rack Attack here to make sure they got the med kits, so that if Bowser does go down, he's going to be able to get those heals back and get those white meds popped. If the Storm does take another victim. We've seen so many victims over the years to the Storm. Don't trust me, you're not the first one to go down to it. I'm sure there's going to be thousands more of us that do so. But looking at where the zone does go down, we are heading down towards Shipfall. Team Liquid have actually taken the very southeastern side of Shipfall, where Complexity were sort of inside it. They've moved up a little bit inside of the actual building itself, inside of the Shipfall, so to speak. And it will mean that Team Liquid will be in a pretty good position to approach this end game. Rakanishi, though, he's going to have to pop that bobble at the moment. Unfortunately for him, he's on an island, and me and Jimmy is not the place to be, but he manages to hit the wiggle as he gets the hips of Gibby moving and survives for now.
Yeah, there was a lot of wiggling that happened, but just about gets round the corner, and now you can reassess how you want to take this fight. Bowser does get some good shots and also should be able to bat up, but has to second guess himself. Nathan goes down. NRG are the team on the other side. They're managing to get him up, but as it happens, Sweet also falls. So it is going to be a 2 versus 3, and oh, unfortunately, the timing is not there. They do not get the player up. Rack Attack stay alive, and maybe the hips don't lie on Gibby, because it means that NRG go down in 20th.
NRG, another team who has had a very slow start today, and week 1 wasn't great for them either. So the fact that the NRG now, after 3 games, are certainly not going to be involved in our end game, like you mentioned, it's game after game, and games, unfortunately, they only go downwards. You don't get more opportunities to play here in the Apex Legends Global Series. So 3 games in a row for them having disappointing performances is not a good sign for NRG here. They're going to have to bounce back on World's Edge. Otherwise, they're going to have some work to do for sure. But Rack Attack, what looked like a perilous situation for them as Rakinishu kind of got caught off guard. He managed to survive, get that bubble down for just long enough for his teammates to get in position to get that cover fire down. He escaped, and then NRG overextend, give that first knock away. And from there, Rack Attack do not make mistakes, but a worrying sign here for NRG.
So elsewhere in the map, as we go down towards Shipfall, it was bots who dropped at Shipfall, by the way. It was Stompies and the rest of the crew who will be in arguably one of the best positions just from where they were able to set up. But it's always the question, did you get enough loot? Right? When that circle pulls so heavily into your area, into your drop spot, have you done enough to claim all of the kind of loot in that area before other teams arrive? Because when it is such a heavy pool like this, we see such quick rotations, we see so many teams try and join others. Elsewhere, FaZe are going to be moving very quickly from their position previously on the east side of the map, and they have found a little home under the bridge here.
Not a home, but it's a risky play here from FaZe. They're forced a bubble already. There's going to be a team firing down from them on height, and it's going to be CLG, I think, who are trying to hold out FaZe here underneath that bridge, or certainly overlooking where this fight is going down. So FaZe, another team, we don't expect them to kind of set the world alight immediately. They said that themselves, but 2 games where they haven't put a huge amount of points on the board, much like NRG, game 3 needs to change for them here.
Yeah, I think even though we talked about FaZe a lot in the early game and, you know, the successes that these players have had on other teams and how good they are individually, it's inevitable you're going to have a shaky start when you are a new forming team. Sometimes you get that honeymoon period where everything clicks together, but that's not always the case. You are sometimes going to have slow starts, but the Charge Rifle doing what the Charge Rifle does best, just beaming players out of the sky, as it looks like FaZe have stabilized here like trolls under the bridge.
Yeah, it was a scary moment for them. I'm going to say that did not look like a comfortable drop, but they made it work. And that, again, is the beauty of having Gibraltar. Maybe this is why it did work, because all of a sudden, the fighting has broken out nearby, and it's going to be Oxygen who are moving in. A couple of knocks on either side at the moment. Kubsky is going to be last alive here. And with just a slither of help, he's going to have to clutch up. Rack Attack get eliminated. But Oxygen, can they survive here? Can they stabilize? No, they cannot. They will be eliminated as well. And who is the team coming in to sweep the last piece is away? It's going to be G2. Our leaders, after 2 games, pick up yet more points, this time in the form of KP.
Yeah, from one bridge to another, but this bridge had a little bit more action than the previous one. And G2, just as they did it in the game before, when they crossed this bridge, they found so much KP, they found so much success, but they still have a ways to go to get into the circle. And actually, it might be the next bridge they get to where they have to face FaZe as their next challenge. But it looks like they're going to try and hold out a couple of teams here at Barometer first, just to see what they can do in terms of KP gathering.
I love this from G2 as well. They actually left Barometer. Remember, this is where they dropped. They're trying to just hunt for kills on the edge. They are feeling confident. They are feeling good. And with that black hole going in and a couple of arc stars alongside it, you wonder if that's going to create enough space for them to move back in to their original home and restabilize here. It looks like they will be able to. Chaotic taken down to around 20 HP is going to have to take to the skies to make sure that he can get that battery down. We'll be able to do so. So G2 stabilized for now. With 30 seconds left, they've got to turn their attention forward instead of back.
And with all the noise that's being made here, it's starting to attract other teams. Optic are in the vicinity, CLG and FaZe also in the vicinity, but CLG currently leaving. That CLG firing themselves across the map right now, by the way, just past FaZe. So FaZe are going to be there, and FaZe actually do get that knock. Albrelelli with the charge rifle from the cannon will able to get the knock, but I don't think they'll be able to clean it up, unfortunately, just because it was such a distance that CLG had traveled thanks to that cannon.
Well, FaZe survive, they stabilize, but we've just seen G2 move ahead of them, and this is going to be a really tough move for them. I wonder if it's going to be a case of trying to force a fight, or maybe it's going to be down to Slurpee to find them somewhere to play. SSG now inside of a fight, and look at this fort that has been put down inside here, but the fort is not good enough. It cannot hold back Space Station, and having just wiped Team Smiley, the most impressive thing is the fact they come out of it so healthy, Dan. 2 players pretty much not even have those white HP points knocked away at.
Yeah, that was like Fort Worth. You just need a plane ticket and you'll be let in. It's not a case of any sort of proper fort that has been built elsewhere, a fortress, as it were. Speaking back on FaZe and their movement, they don't necessarily have to go the same way as G2. They could cross the water as we talk about plane tickets. Instead, they can just take maybe a boat across and they might find themselves on the east side of the map and within that circle. So we'll see a little bit later whether they do successfully do that. But certainly a lot of teams now trying to make their way into this next circle. G2 are going to pay the toll. They're going to go across the bridge and they're going to take the fight.
They're going to have to take the fight as well. Just a little note as well. A little trade went down. You see Optic Gaming eliminated. Dark Zero trying to hold out G2. But here come G2 again. Sharky's trying to pop a Barry. He's not going to have time to do so. Zero left on his own. And G2 are eliminated as Dark Zero holds strong. But unfortunately for Dark Zero, here comes FaZe. Snipe down cleans up the pieces. And FaZe not only surviving now, but starting to thrive as well in the lobby.
Yeah, so FaZe didn't take that same route as G2. They went across the water, but then they heard the action. They saw the knocks happening, and they decided to get involved and just change their trajectory ever so slightly so they could pick up some KP. And now they're on the kind of northern side of this circle where they will have to take this fight with the team in front of them. Otherwise, they are going to find themselves in a very nasty rotation indeed, where they probably have to take a risky Valkyrie play. But if they can win this engagement that's in front of them, if they can get a knock here and beat this team, they would be the last team on this northern side. But it's certainly not going to be an easy fight, that's for sure.
It's not going to be an easy fight, but when you get so much poke damage done as Luminosity go down in the kill feed as well, then you have the opportunity to push up. You have the opportunity to push. And you can see Albrelele also has his ultimate available on Gibraltar. So the defensive bombardment can come down to create some space if needed. But instead, it looks like they may be making a late rotation down to the south here. This could be brilliant from FaZe.
They can actually go all the way around this rock. There is no other team on this eastern side of the circle. So FaZe have a purely clean rotation down into the next circle. The only worry would be CLG, who are in the final circle. The only team in the final circle. FaZe do have to go all the way around this rock, though, and they do have to put themselves in a vulnerable position where CLG will definitely be able to see them. But if FaZe can just sneak in, if they can manage to maybe distract CLG, or if CLG are having their focus on another team that's on the western side of the circle, then perhaps FaZe do have a chance.
Well, FaZe have the utility as well. I mentioned how Albrelele has the defensive bombardment. What he can do is just throw that on top to make sure that the attention is taken away. You can see that now CLG trying to turn their attentions, having spotted out FaZe here, to keeping them out. But Slurpee is going to have that G7 scout poking away at some damage, and as those shield cells are popped, that is seconds that can be used by FaZe here to move forward. Instead, it looks like it might be a Valkyrie ultimate as the play call. First attempt will fall. We're down to just 10 as FaZe now make a risky play to try and find somewhere to call home.
Yeah, they may have been the only team on the west side. Sorry, my compass was backwards, but they were being watched. They can find an angle here. They can find a spot. They've just got to hope no one else is going to try and take it off them quickly, because everyone now moving into this circle. You can see players falling like flies. Sentinels just lost one. Madness also just gone down as well. 10 teams remain, but they are very weak teams. There's a couple of twos featuring as Sentinels out in 10th place.
And Jibby still can be a factor here. Not only can he hold teams out who are trying to move in, as you mentioned, Sentinels have gone down, but they also have that bubble available. If everyone tries to move in, if they come under too much damage, then they can get that bubble down. They can get the reset, unless they get Seer-Queued, of course, which is going to stop the bubble being as effective as it used to be, as the heals will be stopped. But for now, FaZe looks strong. SSG, they're the team who are above them at the moment. As CLG find themselves inside of the building now, with two teams around the perimeter. A tough situation for all of these teams, but SSG have managed to take the height, which is the most important thing here.
There is a lot to process for the FaZe roster at the moment. There's Space Station above them. There are several teams also to their east that they have to worry about at the same time. And look where that circle's going. Look at the amount of space that's playable here. So much of it is taken up by that rock. So you've got two teams that are on the kind of far west side of this circle. You've got about 4 teams that are on the east side. So you're best off being on the west at the moment, but at the same time, all it takes is one team to get a little bit too aggressive, and carnage suddenly will unfold in front of your very eyes, because everyone will be trying to pick up that KP. It is another circle where no one is in the best position right now, really. There is no guaranteed win from any of these spots everyone's currently holding.
Well, you can see the FaZe were trying to poke, they're trying to prod. The only problem for them is they don't know that Zanayo has that Kraber in his hands. One shot here, and FaZe could be toast. Of course, CLG still existing next to them as well. So everyone is being extremely cautious on the fights that they take, on the damage that they do, knowing they might leave themselves vulnerable to another team within the area. Complexity now, who made that early rotation down to Shipfall. They're involved in a 3v3 fight now themselves. Luxford is trying to pop some shield cells to see if he can be a part of this fight, but at the moment, Complexity getting deleted. Monsoon falls. Complexity are out.
Complexity out. 100 Thieves just took to the skies as well as Guard to try and land center circle here. I believe that CLG may be able to play inside the building. Slept on it down to just one. They get wiped out in 7th position. Now FaZe getting involved in the fight, but it looks like they're going to be wiped out as well. And suddenly we're down to what? Just 5 squads just like that.
CLG, they hold the ground. 100 Thieves, they're still involved as well. Actually, excuse me, they've just been eliminated. The Guard eliminated. And now we have our final 3 teams. It's SSG, it's CLG, and it's Team Liquid, who are looking to go back-to-back here on Stormpoint. They have been arguably the best Stormpoint team in the world in recent times, and once again they are involved in this final fight and looking to add another win to their tally.
And when I first saw the map overhead, I didn't realize CLG could play the inside of the building still as this circle closes. Look at how much space there is in the building they can work with. Space Station just above them, they held the top, they held strong because the fights happened elsewhere. Unfortunately, Liquid in complete open space at the moment, but teams do have to come to them. So it's really difficult to try and analyze who's in the best spot right now. Space Station have the high ground, but they've got a team below them. CLG are in a difficult position where they could very much be watched when they come out of the doorways here. Liquid just have to try and take as little fire as possible. If they can get behind a little rock, if they can maybe distract SSG in a way that SSG focus CLG, this could be a Liquid back-to-back, as you say. It's all going to come down to kind of who makes that play first and who gets the first knock.
Might have been some Skynades coming in or attempted from CLG. The missile swarm comes in. You can see that Sano's desperate to hold the line here with his Kraber. Doesn't want to be taken out. The scope also doesn't want to be taken out of the game, but Space Station need him to hit a shot here onto one of these Team Liquid members if they want to be in a position to win this game. The zone is closing fastest on both CLG and SSG, so you get the feeling that Team Liquid, they're in the best spot, and CLG know this. They make their play.
CLG making their way over, have the bubble to work with. SSG also will be able to watch from the heavens, as it were, but also need to move because of that circle as well. And now CLG, they're full sending it.
Yeah, they're full sending it, but they're just running into a wall of bullets. And it's Dropped who is going to get the kills here and should be able to finish them off. 3 squads still remaining. The last player survives for now, but the caustic gas is now a problem for SSG. All this means is that Team Liquid move in once again as the third party, clean up the pieces. The Prowler sings the final verse of the song, and Liquid go back-to-back.
And they played that final circle so well, did Liquid. They survived to a point where they didn't succumb to the pressure that Space Station were putting down at the very start. Space Station had nades, Space Station had damage, Space Station had angles, but Liquid got to a point where they said, guys, we just need to back off. We just need to stay alive. Let's force CLG and Space Station's hands here. It's exactly what they did, and it means they go back-to-back, John.
Team Liquid is playing out of their minds. There's a reason we included them in our teams to watch. They are so dominant on Stormpoint, the first team to figure out the map early on with an interesting team comp in Loba, dropping center map in Cascade Falls. Well, that dominance continues here on set. They've been playing so well on this map, and it showed.
Yeah, I mean, it's just superb endgame management once again from them, right? That's the difference between what we saw from Complexity in that game number 2 and what we saw from Team Liquid in game 2 and now game 3 as well. They realize they have the slower side of the zone. They can take their time. They know CLG and SSG are going to have to make a play. CLG knew they had to leave the building. They used all their resources, the Nox gas, everything to try and take down SSG as quickly as they could. The longer that fight went on, the more the odds fell in the favor of Team Liquid, and all they had to do was move in. It was a simple end game for them in, in the final fight, mechanically, but getting into that position and biding your time is the art of Apex Legends, right? And Team Liquid have seemed to have mastered it.
Yeah, you nailed it perfectly. End game management. I mean, the ability to understand exactly when to third party, when to press on the gas pedal, when to maybe let go a little bit and stay back, and ultimately when to finally ape and push. They're always so patient. It's insane how well they call that. Nocturnal, again, I've been saying it for a while now because I think it's about time that he's finally getting the respect he deserves, but a top 3 IGL in the world. I'm going to say it. And if not even maybe above top 3, he is so incredibly good at keeping his team at bay, so mature. And you've seen some of his tweets lately kind of speaking to the psychological, mental aspect of leadership and performing at this level. His approach, his acumen is unlike anything. I mean, just compare Nocturnal to Sweet or to Hal. Completely night and day in terms of his approach. And I think his approach has been working here, Yasin.
Yeah, it has. And I mean, it's not like they were gifted that victory by any means as well. They had to work so hard to get to that position on the north side of the circle there. We already saw 100 Thieves and Guard kind of fly in with Valkyrie to try and take that prime position. But Liquid, they bided their time. Again, they picked their fight perfectly. They waited for those two teams to engage, and then they came in to clean up the pieces. It was all about timing there for Liquid. And I think if you watch that game back from their POV, you really have to listen to those comms and listen to when they decide to take a fight, because they're not just aimlessly running in, knowing they can win gunfights. They are picking their fights to absolute perfection.
Agreed. That is one worth watching. Check out the highlights on multi-view and listening to Team Liquid's comms these last two games. It's been brilliant. Speaking of highlights, though, let's take a look at the highlights from game number 3. Like you said it, Gaskin, you said it perfectly. It was not given, it was earned from Team Liquid, and it started in the early game. But Gaskin, walk us through the highlights of what we saw.
I mean, in the early game, you've always got these tough situations where some teams are maybe going to be rotating a little bit differently to what they did in games 1 and 2 because they didn't find success in those early games. And that's why we saw a lot of kind of fights happening in maybe earlier stages than we had in maps 1 and 2, because people were trying to change things up, go for a little bit different. Obviously, you're going to have a different circle to work with at the same time, but it means that there's going to be less patterns emerging because teams are trying to do something a little bit off meta to try and get a few more points. But with a lot of those early engagements, it was often the team that was being the aggressor that actually lost out because people were holding so well. We're seeing a lot of defensive legends come back into the meta as well, and it really is working out for those teams who do just try and hold strong here.
Yeah, that's a good point. And a much different playstyle for Team Liquid on World's Edge than on Storm Point. We'll, of course, be breaking that down and previewing that in a moment. But rather than dropping center map, they drop in the northwest side of the map in Trials because they get all the best loot. We'll, of course, get ready for World's Edge here in a bit. But here to the late game. The Guard looked great. Onset, what has not been working for the Guard as of late is they're always getting 4th, 5th, 6th place. Their ability to make it to very, very late game, top 2, top 3, has just not been there the past couple weeks.
Yeah, they're always getting the great spot. They're always getting center zone. They always seem to be able to rotate to the way they wanted to. The difference is their decision making. I mean, look at Team Liquid, right? That's the difference. When you get to those final moments, is being able to seize the moment, see the opportunity, and hold out the team who might be trying to push you, do enough damage, get a shield, whatever it might be. The Guard are just not coming out the best in the pivotal team fight that seems to happen for them towards that end game. And I gotta say, as we look at our match 3 results here, there's a couple of names which, as we head into our final 3 games of the day here on World's Edge, that are going to have to perform. They're the likes of NRG. It's the likes of Optic Gaming, because they're big names and they are not playing like the big names that we've seen so far.
Yeah, that's a great point. 2 teams who performed this week. NRG won the MFAM Gauntlet. Ooh. Optic Gaming won the 50K Boom TV Cup. Well, right now, both of them at the very bottom of these leaderboards. A donut for NRG as they got taken out in 20th. Last place, a donut for Optic Gaming. Not the best start for them here in Storm Point in games 1 through 3. And now NRG's in a similar place they were last week in Pro League. They're going to have to try and claw back these last 3 games. But taking a look at the overall standings, Team Liquid, they go back to back and they give themselves a little bit of a cushion. But once again, Gaskin, 40 points for first, 26 for second, all the way down to 10 points for MPL in 13th, very evenly distributed. So that gives the opportunity here for NRG and for Optic to maybe bring this back here in World's Edge.
Yeah, and as we go into World's Edge, you know, things can change so quickly. We've seen so many times historically a team who has success on Storm Point and maybe leading can very much not be when we get to the end of World's Edge and can even drop down into like the lower ends of the top 10. But we'll see whether Liquid can carry on their success. The way they're playing, the way they're fighting, the way they're kind of picking their fights in the moment, it's hard to bet against them in how they have been performing so far. What I will say in that final circle, I mean, the difference a Caustic made to kind of ruin Space Station's day a little bit there. I think Space Station might have been quietly confident in that final circle, but as soon as they saw that gas emitted from the smelly man, they realized that it was not going to be an easy final circle whatsoever.
Yep. That's Caustic doing Caustic things in late game. We're seeing a little bit of Caustic on display on Storm Point, which you don't really see often. You see a little more of Caustic on World's Edge. But look, let's take a look at the kill leaders overall here. And guess who it is? It's Rambo. So an interesting kill leaderboard here. It's not the teams necessarily on top in the standings. Rambo in 4th place with the Guard is doing what we are used to seeing Rambo do at this point. He emerged as a superstar at ALGS Champs with a dominant performance with GMT. And since then, he has been on fire. 9 kills for the handsome man himself, Rambo. Blakeu, though, one of our rookies in 2nd place, looking really, really solid as well, Onset.
Yeah, for sure. I think that kill leaderboard kind of sums a lot of things up as well. It's like can have one player popping off, but if the team isn't working cohesively, even if you're getting those finishes, but you go 2 for 1 in a fight, it's not going to be good enough to survive towards that end game. And I think you always want to see kills shared out, ideally, among a team. You want to see 3 players next to each other in the leaderboards, sort of in the middle, around the top, instead of one player completely popping off. It means you're going to be more consistent in those team fights, and it means you're going to have more success. So I think the guard, maybe, even though Rambo's popping off and he seems to be doing everything you would want from him, something isn't quite adding up for them in those team fights, and someone else is going to have to give him a little bit more support.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And at the end of the day, teams like Team Liquid aren't necessarily the most flashy and kill leaderboard leadership all the time. Obviously, Gilderson's was the exception to that rule on TL for a long time, but they're just so darn good as a team. Their ability to make it to late game, it goes to show you could have 3 of the best, most talented players in the game. Teams like G2, so incredibly talented, but if you don't have the right teamwork and the chemistry and the camaraderie, you won't necessarily be on top like Team Liquid is right now. And let's take a look at our Team Liquid focus here. They have been great. Dominance personified on Stormpoint, Gaskin.
Yeah, I think we've just got to talk about the decision-making from Team Liquid and how they've not only got into fights, but how they've got out to fights as well. They have managed to survive in positions where a lot of teams probably wouldn't have been able to survive, and that's why they've had so much success. And I think in a meta like this, where we're seeing early rotations so important, where we're seeing the zone pull being a situation where those who are kind of close to that POI finding success, we're not seeing those teams who kind of usually play edge, that play aggressive, find as much success as those who are rotating early. So a lot of it does come down to smarts. A lot of it does come down to decision making as to where you want to move and which fights you want to pick. However, that can change when teams like Furia, for example, and how they played at the World Championships, they can disrupt lobbies like this. So you've got to be careful and you've got to assess who is in your lobby and how people are playing.
Yeah. Well, on the other side of that story or the coin is Space Station, a team that's kind of a bubble team right now. In 7th place, just a few points behind Dark Zero, is Space Station. It's a team that we challenged. We highlighted in the pre-show. We said, are they a S-tier team? Are they an A-tier team? They've shown moments of that. They show some consistency. Well, now's the time to prove it against one of the hardest groups of death, Group A versus Group C. They have been looking really, really solid here. This late game moment, they played it really, really well. Caustic obviously spoiled the wars there for them a little bit onset, but Space Station right now needs to have a really, really good World's Edge.
Yeah, they do, and I think the question is right that we asked at the start of the broadcast, right? Is like, can Space Station ascend into a top 3 team, into a top 5 team that are going to be challenging for championships? Because they are always there. They're there or thereabouts, but they just can't quite get over that line at the moment where every time you look at a lobby, you're like, okay, you never really mentioned Space Station as one of those teams who could go on to win the whole thing. And it's not due to a lack of respect coming from us. It's just we haven't seen that consistent win performance. We always see them at the top, but are they winning? That's the difference. And it seems like Team Liquid have seemed to found that secret sauce. Space Station in that endgame had the opportunity to win it with the Kraber in their hands, but just didn't take the opportunity. And that's the difference what we're seeing in the leaderboards at the moment.
Just imagine one Kraber headshot could have made the difference for Space Station in that late game on Team Liquid. Will SSG rise and ascend, as Onset said? Will Team Liquid keep up their consistency, dropping trials? Will we see teams like 100 Thieves, NRG, Optic step up here in the second half of the series? We will find out, because guess what? On the other side of this Games down, 3 to go in this absolutely stacked lobby of 20 top teams. So many logo, brands, and names in competitive Apex. Who's going to rise to the top? So far, it's been Team Liquid, but there are so many other teams that will be vying for that first place spot and those precious Pro League points. Top 9 in the grand scheme of things will qualify for the Split 1 Playoffs LAN Championship in just a few months. Let's bring back our casters here, Onset and Gaskin, who've been doing a brilliant job calling the action so far. Gentlemen, really interesting start. I want to ask you guys your predictions, though. Going into World's Edge, who's going to perform and why? Onset, I know you hate predictions, so I'm going to bypass you because you are a curse to all things predictions. Gaskin, give us your prediction.
I think it's about time we see Optic Gaming turn up, right? I think World's Edge and what we've seen them do previously in whether it be a different meta or not. We know that Optic are an amazing fighting team. World's Edge is exactly where they're at home, so that's going to be my prediction for you, John. I'll give you one. I'm nicer than
my man. Thank you for not.
I'm so happy that Fallout is learning, by the way. He's given up. He's giving up. I like it.
I saw you shake your head and I was like, all right, mate, I can read a message here. I get it. I can take a point. But no, I like the prediction. Onset, you want to just try? You want to dabble a little bit on prediction?
I predict that you're going to keep asking me for predictions, John, and you're going to get the same answer every single time. That's all I can say. I don't know. I think
politically correct.
I think Optic and NRG both, in my opinion, feel more comfortable on this map. I think this is where we've seen them have a lot of success, and they need to, because they've got 3 games now where they need to try and close that gap. They need to jump up the leaderboards because, like you said, we saw the leaderboards from that last game. 0 points from both those teams in game number 3 isn't good enough. It's as simple as that, and I keep reiterating, 9 spots is all that's available for 30 teams to slot into. Someone is going to miss out. One of the big teams is going to miss out, and you don't want to look back on a week like this and think, hey, that was where it went all wrong for us. That's why we're not at the playoffs, and someone's going to have to feel like that. Hopefully it's not one of these teams.
Yeah, that's a great point. You also don't want to be in the position that Alliance was in last split, right? Where they had to go God mode the last 3 weeks to even make it in their home country. So certainly every week, every game day, Pro League day counts, and every game counts. Guess what? Game 4 is here. It is time for World's Edge. Onset, Gaskin, will NRG step up? Let us know. Take it away.
Well, let's see if NRG can step up. The same can be said for Optic Gaming, as we do now have that change of maps. We go back to that old faithful, I'm going to call it, World's Edge, a fan favorite, one of my favorites, and certainly, I'm sure, players' favorites as well. But also, with the amount of time we've had on this map now, Dan, it was almost like the intricacies of it become even more elevated, right? The timing on your rotation, knowing who's alongside you, knowing who you can expect to fight, all those things you were highlighting a little bit earlier on. That's why analysts and coaches have become such a vital piece of success for teams at the moment, and you are seeing them have more and more of an influence. The question is, are Optic and NRG going to have that knowledge down? Are they going to be able to hold off some of these teams who are making their moves in towards where they're going to be trying to hold down? Because for them, I feel like this game is a big make or break game for them.
Also, I was smiling that whole time we had a map overview because I was just kind of watching where people were landing, who was doing what, and I saw that Guard and RKN tried to get a beacon through the crypto drone, right? But it was denied by Sentinels who were already on the beacon, shot down the drone and said, no, you're not going to have any beacon information. Screw you, get out of here. And suddenly there was a overhead. I absolutely love it. I love the details we have in Apex Legends. I'm sure that we're going to see Guard go back for that beacon information in a little bit, but we can see already on your screen, Liquid have got that little bit of extra info. The circle goes west, but then it goes a little further southwest afterwards, so the kinds of areas like Lava Fissure and staging are going to be prioritized by a lot of these teams.
I love the fact that, you know, I love talking about the butterfly effect of such small plays and what it means for teams, right? You mentioned how the crypto drone gets taken down, right? That's another, say, 30 seconds until the drone's going to be back in play, or maybe you're going to be able to get towards that beacon. That's 30 seconds off your rotation, where you want to play, decisions being made, a couple of teams overtake you. All of these things all of a sudden start to mount up and completely change from one simple, tiny little bit of action that happens. It's not even a player getting damaged. It's the darn drone that goes down, and all of a sudden the Guard have to reevaluate things, and that can make the difference in these type of lobbies. I mentioned how World's Edge is so well known and so well versed now that those kind of things can completely change a game plan. And for Team Liquid, the game plan looks pretty solid. It's quick rotation. They're not worried about the armors. They're not worried about leveling up too much. They're already inside of Lava Fissure here, and I think that's a really good thing to highlight, because you have the option when you're landing over at trials to do those trials, to get those extra armors, extra shield cells, extra bit of loot from completing that challenge. And instead, Liquid have said, we can leave that there for now. We're just going to go for positioning.
And a lot of teams thinking the same thing as well. Liquid, NRG, Guard, CLG, SSG, all the Gs, they're over here. They're making sure they try and win some Gs in this tournament as they get a little bit further because they have moved so quickly over to Lava Fissure. There is so many teams that are saying, all right, we know where this pool's going to be. We've seen this 100 times before. Let's get in one of the better positions. We do see sometimes it finishes kind of over towards the train tracks you see and kind of under those train tracks, or it sometimes finishes on this hillside that you see on the southeast side of your screen right now. There is going to be so many teams trying to vie for these positions, right? Trying to fight for these positions, but you've just got to try and find space at this point. You try to get into a building and then you all ignore each other for about 10 minutes whilst everyone else rotates in.
Well, Luminosity, another team who's been quiet in the lobby so far. Mexican representatives are looking to make their way towards Harvester at the moment, as they're going to have quite the treacherous path to travel, landing down at the southern tip of World's Edge here. They do get the little bit of extra loot on their way, which is always a nice thing to find as you do make your way across World's Edge. Unfortunately, it's a turbocharger, and nobody looks like they're running any energy weapons to make that of use. But for now, you can see a little bit of fire coming in from a team that's also over in Harvester. That's going to be Oxygen, who are on the other side of things. But as we see our map overhead, it's going to give you a little bit more of an indication where those teams are stacking up, where we can expect that end game to go. You're quite right. It looks like Lava Fissure is a very popular place to find yourself calling home for now. NRG have made a very fast rotation in as well, Dan. Team Liquid, SSG, and NRG, as well as Dark Zero, all on top of each other right now.
And they probably are going to be fine being happy neighbors as well. Like, you know, if you saw this kind of circle in a matchmaking game, for example, you'd have one team who are a bit of a loose cannon who decide they want to push someone, and it creates a spiraling effect where everyone gets involved in a fight, everyone ends up dead, and then some team rolls along from the outside of the circle and finishes the game, right? Doesn't happen in pro lobbies. People have far too much respect for those other teams that are going to be residing near them, and they will most likely poke a little bit, but for the majority, just ignore them until the late stages of the game when other teams start to disrupt things, because the more likely is what we're going to see is teams that have to make those risky Valkyrie plays and come in late, they disrupt things because they just have to dive on a building, and suddenly that building is already occupied, a fight emerges, and then everyone starts to try and get involved, and it does just end up being such carnage at the end of the game. I blooming love watching it, and I'm sure it is going to be an exciting ending to this one.
Yeah, it certainly is going to be an interesting one for sure, as we see Madness, Pow Pow, and Shubi up on the high ground here, just to the western side of World's Edge. MPL are going to be up on that high ground, trying to hold this team out that is rotating through that choke. A little bit early damage did get done. Unfortunately, with the one times on the R301, it's not going to be quite the sight that you want in the situation to do that long range damage. The 3 times is going to be much more of a viable option here for Madness to be the player to do that longer range damage, but for now MPL just gatekeeping, just holding things down and trying to use everything they can. But here come G2, they do not care. Chaotic is flying in, he's throwing all of his resources down the black hole. He's going to have the thermite going in as well, and G2 don't get the initial damage, but Madness now goes down as Designful will get the first pick.
I mean, look at this composition. G2 are everything about aggression right now, but Chaotic going down means Designful and Resulta are going to have to work together like they've done so many times before to ensure that Chaotic gets back up. But with Gold Bag to work with, it means that Chaotic will come back with a little bit of health, a little bit of shields, and he'll be fine and dandy. G2 will be fine and dandy as well for now as they retake the high ground.
Well, G2's safe, as you say, but look at the kill feed. Did you notice for a second what is going down? Rack Attack versus Optic, and Rack Attack are going to get the first pick onto Noct. So I mentioned how Optic have been slow today, how they have been struggling. Well, it looks like at the moment that those struggles are continuing. 2 players still left alive, of course, as we've lost 2 teams in the lobby. But for Duplex and Skittlecakes, they're probably thinking, what is going on today? We are really struggling to find our footing.
I mean, I've seen enough arena tournaments to know that Duplex and Skittlecakes can win any 2v3 against any team, but certainly when there's more than just 2 teams involved and you've got other teams that could potentially third party, things get a little bit more difficult. They'll be wanting to try and recover Noct's banner here. They might think it's potentially recoverable, but it does look like Rack Attack are going to be sitting on that banner. And unless we see some incredible shots here and maybe a knock early on, I think Optic are probably going to have to let this banner go.
Yeah, I think Skittlecakes just wants revenge, to be honest with you. The bubble's going to go down. The bubble should disappear in just a few seconds. And unfortunately, the timing not going to be on the side of Skittlecakes here, as unfortunately, the bubble just lasted long enough for them to scarper away and survive. Duplex is going to be using that what looked like, excuse me, the last medkit that he has in the inventory. So they've got to be careful with their inventory management here. Skittlecakes has decided he's got to go to zone. 3 syringes to play with here for Duplex. Medkit being popped now by Skittlecakes, but the zone's certainly causing problems, as are Rack Attack, who, luckily for them, have the crafter next to them, so at least they can survive a little bit longer with some extra meds.
And they decide to take it to the skies. Skyward dive and see where they can find themselves. Can they get ahead of Optic Gaming? I don't think they'll be too concerned about Optic now they've made them a 2. Instead, they'll be thinking about positioning themselves and trying to work towards the end game, just with Optic in the back of their mind, knowing that revenge could be in the forefront of Optic, because we know what Optic are like, right? They like to get involved in fights. They like to try and win those engagements, and maybe they're a little bit peed off with what's just happened.
Well, for now, Rack Attack survive. They hold off the re-peak from Optic Gaming over a few moments ago. But for now, you can see, just look on the map overhead, they look like they got a pretty clear move towards zone. They've got Oxygen and LG, who are kind of inside of staging at the moment, so they might be able to move in. If those teams do engage, they could be the third party, but they've got to be careful also of a move coming in from one of those teams to try and gatekeep them, excuse me. They could also move north, potentially through this vault passage towards landslide. That's where 100 Thieves find themselves right now, and that looks like with that ping is going to be the play call. So a safer rotation coming in now from Rack Attack.
Yeah, and they can get through this area comfortably, right? The tunnel is not currently occupied. They won't know that, but I can see the map overhead. I'm cheating a little bit. Landslide is, however, occupied. 100 Thieves are going to be there waiting at the other side of the circle, of the tunnel, excuse me. So Rack Attack will be fine for now, but it's about whether they notice 100 Thieves and whether 100 Thieves notice them, which will really change how this rotation is affected. But for now, they'll use this crafter that's dropped down, take as much resources as they can, because they know this is going to be a big old scrap, because they have a long way to go with where this circle is pulling over towards Lava Fissure, as all the residents of the Lava Fissure Hotel are still residing in a way where they are comfortably, you know, just popping a few shots from window to window, but maybe it's just a little bit of harmless grief at the moment. No one's gone down, no one's having a bad day, everyone just won together.
It's very poetic from you, Dan Gaskin. I enjoyed that. Let's see if the same poetry can be said for Team Liquid now. They're inside of this building. They're set up. They're going to be pretty comfortable. Let's see what the move is, though. See if they're planning their next rotation, where they want to try and play with a listening now with Team Liquid.
We should scout this area.
There's a clueless bogey out there.
Problem? 15 flash on low ground. Okay. Wait, they're on low ground. They're on ultimate. Rest in peace, boys. Balk on the west ramp right here.
They're hitting B.
That's actually a ballsy.
He queued the door that's not there.
I'm gonna take the fence off this. I'm gonna leave these doors inside like this. Leave the doors like this. Like
I got my armor.
Just leave them like that. Yeah, leave them open like that, please. Because then I'm gonna place a gen. I'm gonna place a gen like right in the middle of this room, so it blocks this fence. Wait, people? Landed on us, north side, underneath.
Yeah, I think he died out of the air.
They're underneath, I think.
No, careful. Do not go out there.
Watching.
Well, back into the game, Team Liquid, you can see, taking down a couple of teams surrounding them. And speaking of teams going down, NRG down again. Top 13 for NRG. Not good enough once more from a lineup who's been playing extremely well away from the ALGS. But what seems like the ALGS at the moment is a little bit cursed here for NRG.
Yeah, it's like looking at one side of things to the other with Liquid and NRG. Liquid absolutely vibing. You can hear it in their comms. They're having fun. They're making jokes, and they are in prime position at the moment to potentially take another game. As for NRG, it is very much them continuing on the struggle bus. And unfortunately, they're going to have to look towards game number 5 before they can really have any success here in this match week. And it's starting to get a little bit miserable for them and looking less likely they can make a real impact in this match week. And that is a shame for a team at the standard of NRG. As for CLG, they're in a pretty good spot as well, actually. When you look at where this circle is going, they should be able to clean up quite a lot of teams that are rotating in from the south side of the map.
They should be able to indeed. There's a couple of teams who are going to be approaching them now. G2, one of them. LG, another. So CLG are going to have some work to do. And knowing that G2 is one of those teams makes the work a little bit more terrifying than maybe it would if it wasn't G2, so to speak. However, there is already a fight breaking out. You can see it's actually Rack Attack who are fighting G2 in the distance. And now you can see that G2 are doing a pretty good job of holding the line at the moment. Impulse is trying to get away. He won't be able to as more teams start to get involved. And don't forget about Optic, because Skittlecakes is still here and still having an influence on this lobby.
And maybe just gets that little bit of revenge onto Impulses. It is going to be the knock and the finish. And we're going to have to see whether the rest of the squad can pick things up. But Skittlecakes will be more than happy to at least add a little bit of that to his repertoire. But G2, a team that has been very dangerous in a lot of these lobbies with their ability to win fights, to take fights, are looking to maybe try and push up onto this circle in the next minute or so. Because otherwise, if they rotate too late, this is when it gets to like panic situation, right? Where you make risky decisions because you are forced to make something quick. But instead, they're going to try and maybe clean up the pieces. This could be the last Gibraltar actually from Rack Attack.
Kind of feel sorry for this Gibby at the moment. Nades the backside of the bubble, trying to make sure that he can survive. And I tell you what, a little third party arriving at just the right time for that poor lonely Gibraltar, because it forces G2 inside of this truck. Unfortunately, it will also force Rack and Issue to turn into a death box, as he will be finished off by said third party from the north. And that's going to be 100 Thieves, who are that team as well. Optic also in the vicinity, overlooking this, fighting this going down. So you've got some big powerhouse names as LG try and pick up the pieces. It's going to be the black hole that goes in, but again, destroyed immediately, not having the effect it wanted to.
Oh, the shreds coming out from Luminosity. They are sitting ducks inside that RV van, by the way. Resulta's going to be the first to go down. Luminosity also need to be careful of that third party you spoke of. Optic Gaming are in the horizon. They're getting involved. Duplex gets the knock and will potentially get the finish. Yes, he does. So now Luminosity on the back foot against an Optic Gaming who, remember, only have 2 players here.
They only have 2 players, but 2 Optic players is sometimes like 3 others. It's just a ridiculous thing to see. G2 now eliminated, but Duplex will fall as Jaguars gets some decent damage onto one of those players. G2 have fallen, but Optic still have 1. Skittlecakes left on his own, and it looks like Luminosity also might be able to get the res here. The CQ is not going to hit. The ultimate is not going to be a factor either. And Jaguars is just holding the line for his team here. LG coming out on top.
Have Skittlecakes been able to get Duplex back up? That's my biggest question. They are alone in that RV van, and they may as well try and get him up so they can have a better chance coming into that final circle. Luminosity are out of there, so Optic definitely will have that opportunity. You talk about poetry in Apex Legends, Mark. I mean, Optic getting the final kills onto Rack Attack after losing their first player to Rack Attack. It was written in the stars.
Oh, no, but unfortunately for Luminosity, one player is going to fall from the skies, manages to hold on for dear life, but this is going to be a rocky looking landing for them. They're going to have to be forced down to that low ground. They're going to have to be forced down into the heat of the lava. But Nizel survives as that lone rat. He's got a Phoenix kick to pop as well. And even though LG, it was a little bit of a scary redeploy for them, they do survive for now. One team I do want to focus on a little bit down on this low ground is going to be CLG, but also FaZe involved in this top 11. 100 Thieves lose 1 player, and that's going to be 2 FaZe. The Missile Swarm gets the knock onto Scurry, and FaZe are right at the tip top of where this circle is going to be pulling. They're in one of the last surviving buildings for this endgame.
As a reminder, it's top 10 when that 1 placement point gets increased to 2, and then it carries on increasing the further you get. Top 8, top 6, and then, of course, top 5 onwards. But there's a couple of rats. You already spoke about Nizel and LG. He's going to be alongside Jaguars, I think, so maybe there are a couple of players left, but Skittlecakes is still alive as a rat for Optic Gaming. He didn't get Duplex back up, but will still be in this next circle. So Optic still have a chance to get into that top 10 if Skittle can successfully rat up. But all of those teams who darted towards Lava Fisher in the early stages of this game, Mark, are still residing in the best spots right now. There was a little bit of contest that happened when the teams who were arriving via Valkyrie got involved, and they pretty much got wiped out for the most part by everyone just combining together from the buildings.
Well, 100 Thieves have been eliminated, so they are out of the lobby. We're down to 10 now. Like you mentioned, this is where the placement points start to get a little bit more rewarding for the teams who make it this far. Every single step that you take is going to be rewarded at this point. First attempt, They're going to have to try and move in, but they know CLG are below them. Enemigo's going to have his shield shredded as he exchanges a little bit of damage, but on reflection, probably took a little bit more than he would have wanted to in that situation. Liquid have to make a move as well. And who is bang center zone at the moment? It's going to be the Guard, who have been here before, but can they convert this position into a win this time?
Yeah, every step they take, every move they make, they'll be watching you, will the Guard. They'll be there. They're in one of the prime positions, as you said, and I think it's one of these squads who are going to be able to move successfully into that little ring donut building in the middle that are going to be in the best spot. I'm trying to see who's there. Yeah, it is Guard. They're being contested by SSG, though, so they have to be careful to kind of force them away or at least force them below them. But CLG in a spot of bother. FaZe are also getting involved. Everyone dropping now. Sentinels have just lost 3 as Sentinels go down in 10th.
Luminosity eliminated as well. Bots go down to just 7 now. Skill Cakes still alive, still doing damage and taking down CLG players as well. Optic finally fall, but not without causing a ruckus in this lobby. But look at first attempt, just shining down shots onto that low ground. A couple to the back of the teammates is always a little bit frustrating, but they are getting the job done at least. SSG still alive. They were the team who had the best position. Now the Guard are getting involved as well, and Team Liquid have lost 2.
Yeah, Liquid now looking unlikely at making it 3 in a row as there's only 1 player remaining on that squad. Nocturnal going to try and do what he can to keep the dream alive of repeat victories. CLG eventually go down as they were in a really hot, bothersome is what I meant to say, spot. And eventually will be just eliminated by everyone that was around them. But with 5 squads remaining, things calm down a little bit now as everyone seems to have found an area where they can play. But of course, as that final circle closes, they're going to be forced closer to one another. You've got high ground to work with in this final circle. You've also got plenty of buildings as well. It's the teams down low that might suffer here because they are really going to struggle to get out of the vision of those who do have high ground above them.
Well, Nocturnal is still alive here for Liquid. They've won 2 games in a row, maybe. He could be the man as the IGL who becomes Superman in this situation and manages to pick up a great performance in this last game. But unfortunately for him, this is going to be the end of the road. Surely he does a lot of damage. He does a huge amount of damage. He's giving him what on earth are you doing, Nocturnal? That's illegal.
I mean, he goes out with very much a bang there. And he does some incredible hit firing that I have not seen in quite some time in my lifetime of playing Apex Legends, but alas, they always surprise me, these pros. Anyway, 4 squads remaining. Bronzy goes down. It's Guard again doing the damage from right of the center of this circle. FaZe are alive. Top 4. Is this the moment where FaZe can pop off and give themselves a real chance in this match week?
Taking the high ground, big damage coming in from Albrelelli as well with that Arcstar, and the Mastiff could be the game changer. First attempt deleted. As now we see them just try and hold down this high ground. The Guard's still alive, so are SSG once again involved in this final circle, but you have to fill with the armors, with the weaponry and the high ground. FaZe have got everything they need to succeed here. Big damage coming in. Frex will go down for here from SSG.
Yeah, SSG have no right in winning this game, but it's Guard and FaZe who are going to be the 2 teams competing really for it. Do Guard now feel like they are in a bad position? Do they try and pick up? Space Station go out, but now FaZe will rain down from above.
FaZe are just decimating here, and FaZe will close out the first game here on World's Edge with a huge victory, returning to what we expect from these 3 players, and that is nothing short of first place results. Albrelelli, Slurp, and Snipe Down get the job done, and I tell you what, in that in-game showing just what they can do to anybody in the lobby.
It's about time that FaZe woke up, and it was just World's Edge they needed, it would seem. Storm Point, not maybe their cup of tea, maybe aren't quite there in terms of practice yet, but when it comes to World's Edge, they are very much back at home and being where they should be at the top of a leaderboard with players like that on that roster. It was a big question for me coming into this week. Would we see FaZe actually show up in any of these games, or would it be too soon? But Scrim results suggested they were going to have this kind of game at some point, and it does happen. The circle went their way. They got to the high ground. They played it perfectly at the end. And I think that Space Station, even though they were down low, might be a little bit frustrated that we saw the drop from Guard there, because Space Station were trying to play just for second place.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where the Guard knew that they weren't going to be able to win that game, so they're thinking, hey, we're just going to have to try and take down SSG here and get some extra KP and guarantee ourselves second place, like you say, excuse me. But FaZe, I mean, what a confidence booster it is, right? We know that some of the players on the team that, you know, when things don't go the way, it can influence their decision making in game. It can affect their mentality a little bit. But a win like that and the way that they won that game down, I think is massive for FaZe. And with 2 games still left on World's Edge, all of a sudden you can see FaZe really rising up those leaderboards extremely quickly.
Yeah, I think there was plenty of KP gathered by FaZe there as well. And it only takes one pop-off game and you are back within the question, not just of top 5, but of still winning this week. You know, there's 3 matches left, or 2 matches left now after that one. So there is going to be a lot of points available, and if you can find consistency here on World's Edge, success is very much waiting for you. It was such a difficult circle to play for any team that was arriving late, with so many teams moving to Lava Fissure early. Like, they just residented together, they were making sure that everyone was in a building, they watched all the teams come and go as they arrived via Valkyrie ultimates, but eventually it was those teams who got there early that were really rewarded with placement points there.
And I got to say again, the guard, center zone, but not being able to convert it into a win, that might be slightly frustrating for them to get those great positions and just those little micro decisions maybe not going their way that they would have expected. But again, a good performance from them, a much stronger performance from them, making sure they get into that top 3, that top 2 is certainly going to be a little confidence builder for them. We'll take a look at some of the highlights from our first game on World's Edge in the meantime, because it was the FaZe show towards the end of that game, Dan, just taking that high ground, picking up those KP, but it was also the story of NRG and Optic once again struggling to find any kind of reason to celebrate.
Yeah, I think Optic would have been frustrated that they lost a player so early on. They did eventually get revenge onto Rack Attack by being the team that kind of dealt the final blow, or at least got a couple of knocks onto them. But NRG, I mean, the question is the same as where we were with FaZe. Like, are we going to see that pop-off game from NRG? Are they going to give us a game to bring them back into the equation as potentially getting a solid placement here in this match week? Or are they going to be just a little bit disappointing by their own standards? Don't get me wrong, like, I don't want to harp on and maybe put too much pressure on NRG, but they expect to be at the top. They are players who are very much gunning for first place in the World Championship, not just in a match week. But alas, other teams who did get to Lava Fissure early were in a great spot. But as you said, Guard, even though they were in one of the better positions, it wasn't necessarily a winning one. It was FaZe who took the risk. It was FaZe who went for a more open area than where they were more vulnerable to other teams. But they were able to make it count because they fought their way to that position.
And you can see from that team fire at the end there, just 3 different variations of gun firing down onto the same target means the comms are looking crispy and the confidence is back up for FaZe. And what it means is a 23-point game for them. 11 kills to go alongside the placement points. The guard taking that second place finish, of course, as well as 4 KP alongside them. Team Liquid, though, you have to say, good performance from them again. Only the 4 points, no kills. Somewhat of a surprise considering the position they found themselves in, but getting into that top 5 once again, showing great signs for Liquid.
I mean, Liquid were on, what, like 40 points? So they'd be up to 44. FaZe have already halved that if they were on 0, which we know they weren't. They were on like 8 or something. So FaZe are really going to shoot up this leaderboard with that pop-off game. This was slightly different to Storm Point. The kills weren't as evenly distributed because FaZe did kind of mop up a lot of them. But still, even those teams who were in the lower half of this leaderboard still were able to find a few kills here or there for KP to get some points on the board. And it is huge to be picking up at least 1 team fight per game so that you can constantly be gaining points as we go through Pro League.
Well, this is going to be our serious standings. This is how things are looking overall. And Team Liquid at the top, the guard in just behind. With that second place performance and the consistency they've shown is starting to reflect in that scoreboard as well. CLG going about their business as well. 35 points for them, Space Station 34, but FaZe, that's the big story here, Dan. Jumping up into 5th place with 31 points on the board.
But can they now progress from this, right? Can they have that ability to actually find consistency from that victory? Sometimes you just need a victory to really give you the confidence in your team, and we'll see if the comms are going to be a little bit different for FaZe, where there's going to be more belief for them into game number 5.
We'll have to see what's going to happen in game 5 after this break, but FaZe
Apex Legends Global Series, Monster Energy, your official energy drink for the ALGS.
Welcome back, everybody, to the ALGS Pro League North America. Certainly throwing up some surprises now, and certainly starting to look a little bit more interesting as we head into our final 2 games of the day on World's Edge. FaZe taking the win on their debut in the ALGS in our previous game, Dan. And I'm still looking at NRG and I'm still looking at Optic to stand up because they've only got 2 games to do so. And it's starting to look a little bit worrying for both those squads.
Yeah, it gets to that point where there's now too many big teams to pop off and have their big moment, right? Again, it's the same kind of scenario where there's only 9 teams that can make playoffs, but there seems to be about 15 teams that deserve to be there. So are we going to see Optic step up? Are we going to see NRG step up? Are we going to see 100 Thieves have a big game as well? There's all these different teams that could pop off in their right moment. But it's about knuckling down. It's about actually getting it done as we get out of the dropship and we get onto the map once more. World's Edge for 2 more times we have today before the week 2 of Pro League will finish. I really want to see where this circle is going to end up because I think we know statistically it has been making a big difference on who finishes where. But are we going to see a more comfortable circle for some of these teams that have been struggling?
I think one interesting story as well, just to highlight, is DarkZero had a great start to the day, right? They picked up a win in that game number 1. But outside of that, been a little bit anonymous. And now that they've moved over to North America and they're competing in the North American Pro League with just 9 spots available, DarkZero got to start stepping up as well. Back-to-back LAN champions. There's always the chance you don't make the damn LAN, which would be incredibly disappointing for them. But as I say that, I bless them. As you can see where that zone is going, you see Lava Siphon's going to be there, but you also see a little bit of a contest going down at the northern side of the map. And that is going to be Bots on our screen at the moment, and down to just 2 as Stompins has fallen.
Yeah, Bots having a fight already. And unfortunately, in a 2 versus 3, you really need to be now communicating perfectly with one another, watching those angles, baiting and switching where you can. No shields to work with as well, both on Grays at the moment. And weapons aren't particularly the best. A Prowler and an Alternator to work here for JQ and trying to get up and close and personal. The Clamber, though, comes through. And unfortunately, it might have ruined everything for him. Goes to the sky now, but it is going to be the end of Bots as Slept-On win that initial engagement with the contest in the early stages.
Well, it's the first time we've seen a little bit of contesting going down on our screens, and it's going to be one. Of course, oh my goodness, what did we just see, by the way? In our kill feed, things looking very spicy already, and it's DarkZero who are involved. They hold off Rack Attack and will win the fight over here at Lava Siphon. Now, that's not only big for the fact that it's a straight-up fight at the beginning of a game, a team who, like I mentioned, maybe need to just add to that point tally a little bit, but this is where we maybe are expecting this circle to pull towards. So DarkZero now going to have a bit more time to pick and choose where they want to actually engage and where they want to set up for the long game.
Yeah, Lava Siphon is a pretty safe banking point here for teams, as this circle could pull all the way down towards like Geyser or Lava, but most often will end up somewhere around Lava Siphon with the circle that we've seen so far. But those with beacon information will probably be able to position themselves a little bit better than those who haven't. But certainly, as I say, just going for those areas where there's more likely to be able to play from is where we're going to see Lava Siphon be often sought after by a lot of these teams. And actually, we're seeing, I'm looking at the map overhead, a lot of teams are already heading that way to try and find a little bit of room to play with.
Yeah, interesting fight maybe about to break out, actually. It's NRG and Complexity were very close to each other on the western side of Lava Siphon. So it's going to be Slept-On who are having to deal with a little bit of a push coming in. Not for the first time. They won the contest, but now they've got Sentinels in the area. Sentinels looking to pick up some pieces. Not sure what the composition is going to be for Sentinels in this game here on World's Edge, but Slept-On already coming under pressure here.
Yeah, not just Slept-On, but actually everyone in Lava Siphon is under a little bit of pressure at the moment. Optic laying down some fire on the east side of Lava Siphon. Complexity also doing some damage, as well as Slept-On getting involved in this fight right now. This is such a difficult position to try and play, and it is Sentinels with this composition you were talking about who now can get aggressive with the Bloodhound.
This is happening right at the northern tip of the map, this fight. As Sentinels try and move in right now. Should be able to get the finish. They seem to be doing the damage that is required. The hipfire will get the knock, but now Lou has gone down as well. So the falling from the sky Valkyrie is still doing damage. Krusty's having to work hard for this, as are Sentinels, but Slept-On will go down. And Sentinels will be able to reset here. Nobody else in the vicinity to take advantage of a third-party opportunity, and that's what Sentinels do best when they're playing at their best. They pick up those isolated 3v3s, they win those fights, and they pick up those KP to fight with.
It's mad because Lava Siphon looks very similar to Climatizer, and
similar.
I was expecting us to go to a Lava Siphon fight considering how many teams are there, but the one place where there's only 2 teams was Climatizer. Very important that Sentinels won that engagement because now they have the entirety of the northern side of the map to themselves. They can loot, they can rotate slowly, they can make their way down to Fragment East. Granted, they're not going to be in one of the best positions for Final Circle, but we know that historically Sentinels can play Edge very successfully anyway here on World's Edge, so we'll see whether they can pop off.
The Guard pick up a couple of KP, 17 squads remaining as we've seen 3 fall, and now they're going to make their move as well. They're in the cut between Harvester and, of course, Lava Siphon, trying to kind of thread the needle and see if they can find a level or maybe one of those buildings on the outside of Lava Siphon to try and hold down a little bit. CLG using the bubble just to retreat and make sure that they're safe. They do also have a team inside of this Lava Siphon here. So holding down the tunnel for CLG is objective number 1. And with Dimmy with a wingman in his hand, we've seen this guy do some crazy nutty stuff in Arena with that weapon. It wouldn't be surprising to see him feel extremely confident if anyone does decide to poke.
It does feel like pretty much every team in this lobby has one player who is an absolute aim star who can bring something out that just defies all odds and really blows our minds at any moment. And that is what is so exciting about watching the ALGS Pro League, is there's so many talented individuals. There is your map overhead, though. There is the lay of the land, as it were, and there is very much a lot of congestion down over towards Lava Siphon at the moment. Everyone in or around it. There's still maybe, what, 5 teams who aren't there, and I think they've realized now that they are too late to the punch. They are not going to get into one of those positions, so they're going to have to bide their time, wait for a little bit of more circle information before they eventually decide to get involved in that party.
I like the way that Optic are playing this as well. We do see those pools a little bit away from Lava Siphon towards the eastern side, where we saw in EMEA earlier, right? It finishes out in the open. All the teams that are stacked up in the buildings have to leave. And Optic are kind of deciding to play the bridge, play the low ground between Big Mord and that position that we were talking about inside of Lava Siphon. So if that is the pull that happens, Optic could be in a good position here to have a good game. NRG, they're kind of hovering around the outside of the map at the moment. They're down to the southern side of Lava Siphon. Again, not choosing to get inside and stack up with all of these other teams. And to be honest, I kind of like that approach. Let everybody else have some of that real estate that's center zone. But if they have to leave, both NRG and, of course, Optic might be in good positions to take advantage of that. As I say, NRG decide that maybe they want to change that gameplay. Now they're trying to move in and take this fight and bully the team off.
Yeah, bully the team off, take their position, force them to maybe run into another team, and then there's one less team to worry about as well. Well, I will say, we did have the Guard on our screens just then, and, you know, their consistency has been incredible as NRG are consistently continuing to push right now. Maybe wanting that extra KP from the Smiley team that was below them. But it looks like they're going to have to hand that team off to someone else now, because it's Dark Zero who are on the other side of things, and NRG need to rethink about where they want to position themselves and maybe go back to a more comfortable home.
Oh, Gilderson's got to be so careful here. You could see just getting singed by a charge rifle. Nathan also in a position here where he's just trying to survive. All of a sudden, the game plan changes once again from NRG from aggression to just trying to stabilize and just stay alive in the lobby. Looks like they will be able to do so, though. Didn't get the KP they were looking for on that push, though, which is going to be frustrating. But sometimes in those kind of situations, this is where you need your leader to say, it's all right. It's okay. We didn't get the KP we wanted from that fight, but now we've got to draw our attention back and kind of let that one slide.
Shotgun bolt here. Level 3.
A lot of silence over World's Edge at the moment. A few shots ringing through the map, but it's mostly just poke damage from a distance, because all those teams who did rotate early seem to be in safe-ish spots. It's going to get a little bit more messy when all the teams who are outside of the circle start to make their way through. G2 are going to really shake things up when they eventually come in from the western side. FaZe are actually setting up in Harvester right now, and we've seen some crazy pulls. I don't think it's quite going to go all the way over to Harvester, but there could be a little bit of the maybe snake tunnel that stays in the circle, that's for sure. I think those teams who are banking on the southwest of Lava Siphon are going to get a shock surprise when they get that beacon information. As I can see on the map overhead, things are not going to look pretty for those teams who are on the southwest side. It is moving more northeast, actually, from where they currently reside.
Kind of like what Sweet's doing as well. Sweet just swinging around, using that mouse and keyboard ability and the movement to just make sure that he's using that Seer passive to constantly check if there's any teams rotating in late behind him. So Sweet just always, literally almost with a head on a swivel now, playing on Seer, using that passive to the fullest of its abilities. But here comes G2 now. They are making their move towards Harvester, and if anyone is going to be making problems for anyone, it's going to be G2, and it's Team Liquid who are on the other side of this, and also in the vicinity overlooking this, inside a Harvester, is FaZe. So you have three of our powerhouses about to butt heads here on the edge of Harvester.
Yeah, that's why I was uh-ohing. If G2 didn't notice Team Liquid there, that was going to be them done and dusted. They would have got absolutely wiped, but of course, you've got players who are going to be scanning, you've got players who are going to be playing Seer or a Bloodhound, so you can get that information, and now we are going to see G2 slightly change their approach, but that probably ruins their rotation. They were probably thinking they could just calmly rotate around Harvester and find themselves with a little bit of space to work with. Now they're going to have to go through a little bit more of a chaotic approach, no pun intended, because obviously Chaotic is playing for G2, but Team Liquid are instead going to move their way into Harvester, where they will now be greeted by the FaZe roster that you were talking about that inhabits this area right now.
FaZe trying to hold out Liquid at the moment. Slurp's going to take a little bit of damage though. Has to back up. Got 2 batteries in the inventory to play with. He's going to have to use one of those. Half that carrying capacity for now. Does have the gold armor though, so if he can get some poke damage down, he can heal nice and quickly with a shield cell to give a little bit of a advantage to his team in the timing that it might take to get that health back up. But Madness is also in the kill feed as well. It's G2 who are feeling the pain. And speaking of pain, look at these scout shots coming in. Look at the damage being done now by the defensive bombardment. And G2 find themselves in a shambles, and it's all down to the push that comes in from FaZe, and the defensive bombardment from Albralele just shatters them inside of that creek.
And again, G2, you know, their rotation was completely ruined by Liquid. And you can see now that they were punished for it as well, having to push through more open area where they were vulnerable to the likes of a defensive bombardment. Frustration for G2, but sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles when you rotate late, when you are playing edge. There are going to be teams in your way. There are going to be teams who block that rotation. It is not plain and simple. Now, earlier you were mentioning how Optic Gaming were playing this circle and how they were banking on it potentially pulling east. I think they might have nailed it with where they currently are residing. If we can get a map overhead at some point, just to where the lay of the land after this fight, perhaps, because really, Optic have hit the nail on the head.
They have for now, but this fight, again, is a very interesting one because Team Liquid at the moment are the meat in the sandwich, and it's not a sandwich that you want to be a part of, to be honest with you, because on one side of it is going to be Sentinels, who are coming in from the north. On the other side of it is going to be FaZe. So 2 of the strongest fighting compositions and 3s that you could possibly wish to go up against, well, they're all here at the moment in the vicinity in the north side in this snake. Team Liquid got to be extremely careful how they play this. The good news for them is they will be safe in the next zone, so they don't have to force anything.
That was a meaty sandwich you described. It was almost a sandwich with no bread, but just meat upon meat upon meat. It's like 2 steaks surrounding some chicken.
Talk to me more,
you know,
Dan Gaskin.
It's just a breadless sandwich. That's how meaty it was. It was
my kind of sandwich.
Just incredible. So much protein there for all those who want it. But Sentinels now will be looking to the skies to try and get some extra shots, some extra damage on that team that is going to be Valking over the top of them. But at the moment where Sentinels are, they might be in a good spot to try and take down the team that gets past them.
Sorry to jump you off here, but I mean, FaZe were one of the pieces of bread, and now all of a sudden Sentinels find themselves in the middle of things. FaZe actually Valk over the top of Sentinels and take this fight. It's a brave, risky decision coming in here from FaZe, but I gotta say, I kind of love it.
They were tired of being the bread. They wanted to be more meat. And it should work out for FaZe as long as they hit their shots here. But they've got to be careful because the other team in Harvester is now looking their way at the same time. It's brave and it's risky, but it can pay off. You've just got to make sure you strategize in a way where you don't allow yourself to take too much damage from that third-party team. I think you may have missed your window to take a straight 3v3 fight here, so you have to be careful.
I mean, the good thing here for Liquid as well is they're probably sitting there going, oh, thank God FaZe have left, because now FaZe aren't a problem for us. We can just turn our attentions towards FaZe and Sentinels who are just poking at each other, and any damage that goes down, we can become the third party. So FaZe, like you mentioned, tried to create a window of opportunity by landing behind them and behind, Sentinels who are up on this high ground and taking advantage, but it wasn't to happen. We'll have to see what the next play is going to be. We have a listening lined up with FaZe. Let's see what the decision is.
40 on 1. Yo, if you have needs, you... Hold. Just hold the steady. I'm popping a cell.
Anyone have cells?
No, I only have 2. I have Gibby ult in 7%. Watch your back.
I'm popping my only bat.
They're getting shot in the back. They're getting needed. Don't shoot that seer. Don't shoot that seer.
They're moving right. They're moving right. They're moving right.
Dude, this guy in the building. Valkyrie. Listen, how long till I Valkyrie?
69. Give me this team's getting fucked.
Take my.
We need to kill these guys, I think.
No, we'll be okay. We're gonna have to.
Yeah, I have 2 bats and no cells.
This team's crossing.
They're gonna shoot them then.
We can fight this. We can fight this.
We can hear the intensity here from FaZe. They know they've got decisions to make. Do they fight? Do they go for the Valkyrie? Do they try and push it? It looks like the last is the decision that is made, and Slurpee's going to do damage inside of that bubble. Who's going to go? It's all of FaZe, and it will be them surely coming out on top of this fight.
Yeah, I think they may have realized that waiting for the Valkyrie might have just left them as sitting ducks, so instead they are trying to be proactive, but they've lost one player here, and is that going to be very detrimental because 2 go down? It is going to be sniped down as the last remaining player, who is just going to have to get the hell out of there because Team Liquid did join the fight late. And unfortunately for FaZe, even though they got that KP, it may mean that they cannot get any further in this game apart from just ratting out.
And Snipedown looks like he will be able to Valkyrie out of here. So will Team Liquid. They saw that third-party opportunity. I mean, the move from FaZe initially, I liked the idea, but the window of opportunity, like you mentioned, closed so fast that all of a sudden, FaZe put themselves in a horrible spot, and now FaZe have been eliminated. Liquid kind of blessed in that situation. They were in the toughest of spots, and now they find somewhere to play, but they've got to be careful. The missile swarm coming in as well. Sykes has to pop a Barry. Nocturnal is weak as well, but there is where the defensive legend comes in. Sykes will go down there. The banner will be picked up as Team Liquid down to just 2. 11 squads remaining.
Back to back. Watching every angle at the moment. A castle wall to work with and the shield. It's just a team above them. You can't watch every single angle at the moment. Fun's going to go down. Nocturnal surely will be next. And Liquid eliminated in 11th place. But Space Station, after doing so much damage alongside the likes of Optic, maybe they're in a little bit of trouble as well. They're in such a good spot, but they're now under the team that was previously under them. It's so difficult to try and navigate these final circles.
There's a guard in the vicinity, 100 Thieves around as well, and on the northern side of this circle, Complexity down on that low ground as well, looking to cause a little bit of a problem, but who is away from all of this fighting? Who is still inside of a building feeling safe? It's Optic Gaming, a team who was desperate for a little bit of good luck, are still involved in this fight. Oxygen Esports, they will be taken down by DZ. Dark Zero also looking to regain that form that we saw from them in game number 1.
Yeah, they picked up a few KP here to work with that maybe can just propel them up the leaderboards ever so slightly. They've jumped from 7th to 6th, so they are at least in an upward trajectory. But they are outside of this next circle, so they are going to have to worm their way in it in the next 40 seconds. But you are right. We are going to see Optic in one of the better positions. As I say that, Optic get a stick onto Sweet, so NRG have lost 2, and they may be losing all 3 if they're not careful. NRG are down and out as Optic wipe them out.
Dark Zero overlooking all of this fight going down as well. Dark Zero in a great spot, though, you can see. They don't have a legend that's going to give them cover, though. So it's going to have to just be the natural terrain that surrounds them. They don't have the Gibraltar. They don't have that Newcastle to help them march forward if they have to make a cross and be safe about it. And with Optic Gaming holding down in front of them, inside of this truck, it's going to be a tough move here for Dark Zero. The question is, can they find an opportunity for KP now? Yeah, it's about having your wits about you now and utilizing what you have. You may not have defensive legends, but you've got very aggressive ones. You've got the ability to take the high ground off of someone. You've got the ability to Valkyrie out if you want to go for the real risky play of maybe going for the high ground, which 100 Thieves currently occupy the ultimate high ground, by the way. They have just been able to stay alive as Dark Zero once more used the utility of Horizon just to get that extra little bit of a speed boost so they can escape the team that was shooting them. But who is that team that's inside, of course, of the only building that's in zone? It's the guard. The guard are there again as Dark Zero starts to fall apart. 100 Thieves causing so much damage as well as Optic onto Dark Zero. Unfortunately, the zone might be claiming the last life here. Dark Zero forward down to just 5.
And even though the guard, haven't been winning games, the consistency has been incredible. They've always been center circle. They've always been finding themselves into these final circles. And that's why they find themselves kind of in the top 2 at the moment for points. If they can continue this consistency, sometimes you don't need those victories. You just get the kills, you get the placements, and you will find yourself in a fantastic spot week in, week out. They might not be the flashiest team. They might not get those wins on the board, but honestly, they are going to be a team that everyone needs to feel threatened by with how consistent they've been today.
One thing I will say is this is an Optic game to win. Optic are sat at the very southern tip of this zone. They are on their own. Everyone else is stacked up on top of each other. There's Optic Gaming. They have a little bit of cover to play with as well. Complexity could be somewhat of a problem, though, if they do decide to swing out and cause damage to Optic as they leave that truck. But the zone will close behind Complexity first, so they'll be forced to move. 100 Thieves, zone closing behind them. They're going to have to fall off this high ground as well. They don't have the ultimate as well from Newcastle to give them that little bit of cover. It's going to be a rough landing here for 100 Thieves.
Yeah, they could go up if they wanted to, but no, they go down. And what goes up must come down eventually as 100 Thieves make their way across. They didn't go for the pure risky play. They went for maybe a more slightly medium risk play by just dropping and avoiding the fight as early as they could. You've either got to be first to move or last to move. You cannot be in between. But Optic have spotted out 100 Thieves. They've got the seer abilities to get that information, and they're dealing a lot of damage.
Well, there is the castle wall going down as well from Scurry. That is massive for 100 Thieves. It's going to buy them precious seconds here as Optic now have to leave that building. They have to leave the truck. They have to go across the open ground. And if they can connect with some shots here, 100 Thieves have a chance to take Optic out of this game. Monsoon will do it, though. Duplex will fall as Complexity make their move forward.
So many eyes on Optic Gaming at the moment. Unfortunate for them as they were the one team on the southern side, but that meant all the eyes were looking from the northern side. 2 are down. Optic surely are going to be down and out. Yes, they will. They finish in 5th position.
Optic Gaming out, down to just 4. Complexity fully dressed in red at the moment, suited and booted, and with a massive in their hands as well. Should be able to do a huge amount of damage. Monsoon and Luxford left as the last 2 alive as SSG make their play now, but Frex should be able to surely clean this one up. Monsoon down, but Complexity still not out as 100 Thieves will go down.
Could this be the Guards game, though? They've been there or thereabouts in the final circles, and finally they make it count, finally get that victory, and they are going to be real contenders to win this entire week with how they have played, with how incredible they found themselves in these final circles time and time again, and now they get that W to go alongside it.
Great performance there from the Guard just to make sure that they righted the wrongs of the previous games, right? Getting to that end zone, they've been so good at it, but just having that little bit of nous, that little bit of ability to convert on those last decisions to win games has been a little bit elusive, but now they have that win to go alongside their solid placements. John, we'll bring you back in as well to talk about what we just saw, because the Guard rewarded for consistency here with a first place finish.
Absolutely. The Guard shows up big. We'll take a moment to say, Onset, you go take a break. Actually, please take a break. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning or something ridiculous where you're at, as I'll have Gaskin join me back for this post-game analysis and break down the Guard. We criticize them, or actually, I'll take that back. I will take ownership. I criticize them on Storm Point for their inability to finish, to get top 3. They're always lingering in the 4th through 6th placements, which doesn't give them the points that they need. Well, here we go. Back-to-back games. They get 2nd, then 1st place. They say, Fallout, hold this. Really, really good showing from the Guard.
Yeah, it was. I mean, eventually when you have that consistency where you keep finding yourselves in the final circle, it almost feels inevitable that a victory will happen, that the circle goes your way or the fights go your way. You just have to be patient enough and trust in your ability in these final circles. And they had the building for quite some time, and it was just a matter of other teams kind of making paving the way for them. And we saw what happened. 100 Thieves, they dropped down first. They started that kind of tumbling effect that happened afterwards. It really did snowball out of control just because of 100 Thieves moving so early. It forced Optic out, and then everyone else followed suit. And all the meanwhile, Guard was sat just blissfully unaware, just saying, what's happening outside? I guess we should join this eventually. And when they did join the fight, the damage had already been done, and they timed it perfectly.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? Optic was taking care of 100 Thieves. Complexity and Space Station Gaming were taking care of each other, and left in the middle to just enjoy and reap the rewards were the Guard. But it was their positioning that got them there. Really, really well positioned. They found themselves inside the long hallway building that got them the ultimate God spot and great positioning, and they could slowly walk it in, play their time, take their time. But the story of this tournament for me has been Rambo. Currently the kill leader of this lobby. Again, it's such an interesting story for the Guard, right? Because former Torrent squad, they can never necessarily break into that A tier, that S tier with Urice or Hill in their past rosters. They pick up Rambo. Now they pick up Keon, who is the missing piece to this squad, or so they think. And they've been playing really, really well. I'd put them in the A tier, really a top 5, top 7 team in North America based on their performances the last couple of weeks. And it's even more interesting because they both played with separate teams. They were substitutes at ALGS. They did not qualify. Rambo plays with GMT. It's top 5 with them. And RKN plays with Invictus, and IGL's them to success with Noises, unfortunately, coming down with COVID. So it's a really remarkable story that they both found success elsewhere, gained their confidence, and when they came back together, they felt more confident and even stronger as a duo.
And it's not just gaining confidence, it's gaining experience, right? They were put in the best lobbies in the entire world, and they were still able to come out on top as individuals with other teams. You combine that knowledge now, you combine that experience, and suddenly you start to put together a squad who can really make a difference here. And you can see the experience flowing through them with how they've played, with how they've navigated these circles, with which buildings they try and take, which fights they try and pick. And even though they didn't find the victories in the early games, you know, it's not about getting those victories. We've already seen that teams who are kind of landing in certain areas and the circle pulls their way, they get the victory, but then they can fall off a little bit later. You need to be a team that finds consistency, getting points when you are far away from that final circle, when you have to move a lot of the map. And that's what we've seen. Just so much success from this Guard roster.
Yeah, completely agree. Well, let's take a look at the highlights from the entirety of the game. The Guard wins game number 5, and you've almost always felt like RKN is Goku, kind of a fatherly figure who unlocked Super Saiyan these last couple months as an IGL. Well, if he's Goku, then Rambo is Gohan. He has no idea how good his hidden powers are. Rambo's been playing so incredibly well, and he's getting better and better. He is an absolute monster on the sticks. I've been impressed with the two of them, and Keon, of course, rounding them out so incredibly well. But early on, Sentinels found themselves in a fight, almost got taken out in this early 50-50. It's not often that Sentinels loses a 50-50, though. They win that one.
And you didn't give Keon the Dragon Ball Z character. What's the deal, right? Why we got Goku and Gohan, but we don't have another character coming into the equation?
Piccolo?
Piccolo works out for me. Yeah, I was thinking that's a nice little round out. So that works for me. At least you've got there eventually, Fallout. I was worried you were going to leave him out. But yeah, those who watch Dragon Ball Z are probably thinking, you know, great references. Those who don't are probably thinking we're absolutely crazy, you know? But elsewhere, we saw so many teams who had a real struggle on this map, who really couldn't get to that early rotation lava siphon. So many teams were able to move in the early stages, but those who didn't, like G2 for example, they had such a tough rotation. They were caught out because Liquid were in the way, FaZe were in their way, and unfortunately they bowed out a little bit early. And even though we were talking about G2 in the early stages and how well they were performing in team fights, they've still not had that big pop-off game to put them at the top of the leaderboards, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. G2 has been having some glimmers of greatness. It's been really impressive to see them. Obviously, they're playing a high-risk, high-reward Bangalore and Bloodhound team composition, but we haven't seen them make it to late game since that game 1 second-place finish, and as a result of that, they've kind of slid down their standings a little bit. So I'm excited to see if they can bounce back with a big game number 6, but here we go, the end game. That's what we mentioned. Complexity find themselves in that fight against SSG. Optic and 100 Thieves take care of each other, and the Guard comes in and clean up an L5. They're able to pick up a first-place finish with this final sweep right here with the Mastiff. The Guard takes home first, and as a result, Team Liquid falls early in this game. Hasn't had as successful of a World's Edge. They fall out of top 2, I believe. Maybe top 1 as the Guard will take over. 6 kills, 18 points, but Space Station and Complexity with a monstrous double-digit game.
And it's so difficult in those final circles to get the timing right. I've seen teams historically move that little bit too early, and then suddenly the knocks haven't come through, and the team who was previously winning the fight just turns on you and does enough damage to you that you throw that game. So it really does come down to the IGL making the call at the right time. So it's not just as easy as, you know, appearing at the right time and just getting a win gifted to you. There's so much more that goes into it about timing and positioning from these squads. So we really have to credit them with how well they have played. Down in the bottom half, after an incredible game from FaZe, they still pull out 5 points in this one to keep themselves within the shout of top 5, if not more. Sentinels got a team fight under their belt in the northeastern side of the map, but weren't able to really do much more after top 15. And again, as we mentioned, G2 had a struggling game because they couldn't quite get their rotation down.
Yeah, that's right. Well, as a result, let's take a look at the series standings after 5. The Guard take first, Space Station barely takes second, and boy, oh boy, do we not have ourselves a series. Apex family, are you not entertained? Look at this. From first place all the way down to Dark Zero with 35. You have a huge opportunity for teams to fight for top 3 in the grand scheme of things. We knew that this would certainly be a competitive lobby with such great talent. I don't think we knew how close it would truly be. Let's bring Onset back to get his thoughts on the series standings and get him into the discussion here, because gosh, it is an absolutely entertaining Thursday night of Apex.
It is. I've been thoroughly enjoyed it as well. And I think the thing that I keep bringing up, and I think I need to keep bringing it up, is the fact that there's only 9 spots available to qualify for playoffs. And I think every single game has more weight on it. And you're seeing that in the decisions that are being made by teams. You're seeing late games with 15, 20, 15, 17 teams, whatever it might be, because of the fact that everybody knows every game has a huge influence towards those potential top 9 spots. Like Dan said earlier, it could come down to one KP that was picked up at one point in a team fight. It can come down to one placement point, whatever it might be when we get to that final 9. So I think that every team knows that as well, and you can see the way that they're playing it. That's why I'm so worried about the likes of NRG here. First week wasn't great for them. Second week hasn't been great for them. It needs to be a monster game 6 for NRG. Otherwise, the matches are starting to disappear. The days to perform are starting to disappear, and NRG might not make that top 9.
That's a great point on set. And yeah, you can keep dominating all of the B tier, A tier competitions, but you got to perform in Pro League if you want the piece of the $5 million ALGS prize pool. Look, game 6 is here. It is all coming down to this. Onset, Gaskin. Bring the hype, boys. I know it's late there, but it's game 6, and we got quite a series in our hands. Take it away, guys.
We do indeed, and don't worry about that, John. We'll always bring the hype, even if it's late over here. Don't worry, Apex Legends is on our screen, so we're going to have smiles on our faces, and of course, everyone who's watching at home at the moment, we hope you're having a wonderful time as well. But Rakatak are not having a good time by the look of things here, Dan. Already burning to death on the bottom side of this map, and it looks like Dark Zero are looking to win this fight here at Lava Siphon once more.
And you better believe we'll wake our neighbors, we'll wake our girlfriends. The dogs will be howling if we need to. That's my actual dog, by the way. I wasn't referencing my girlfriend. That was very dangerous analogy there, Dan Gaskin. But Dark Zero, they did get the initial knocks, and they will take out Rakatak, who have had such an eventful Pro League, may I add. Rakatak have been involved in so many early fights. Doesn't seem like they found a home here on World's Edge.
Yeah, Rakatak, unfortunately, the bags will be packed for this week. Come back next week. But look, who's arriving right on cue? It's going to be bots. And they're involved in a little bit of a scuffle themselves. This time, it's not going to be right next to where we just saw for that fight in Lava Siphon. It's going to be down on the northern side again. Another contest going down. And I just wonder if this fight takes a while again, if Sentinels are going to think, hey, we can move over in third party, this like we did in that game we just saw previous. But for now, bots are just trying to chase down the damage they've done, and it looks like they might come out on top here.
You've got to be careful, though, because even though they are chasing this fight at Climatizer, Sentinels are very close at Epicenter and Survey Camp, and bots will know that, but it's in a 2v2 at the moment. Make it a 1 versus 2. Suddenly, Stomps is the last remaining player here and has to go huge with the Eva rate, and just about gets those final ticks with the pellets just doing the damage from a distance. I was worried a little bit the Eva 8 might not pull through there, but it does just about get there.
Uh-oh. I'm just saying, there's sharks in the water right now for bots. Even if they get back to their feet, don't expect them to get back to full shields, because here comes Sentinels. They did not need to be asked twice. And Crust is going to get that knock as well. So this is the horrible thing about 50-50s. Even if you win it, even if you're celebrating, saying, get off my land, Sentinels just pick up free KP. This is just a gift for them.
Well, look at the attack formation we saw as well. Like red arrows flying through the sky. They were taking a triangle formation is what I was going to say, god damn it. But honestly, incredible. With their tails between their legs at the moment, hoping they can survive.
They managed to pick up 1, but you have to wonder if they're going to be able to completely wipe this and just pick up the free KP that was presented to them. This time, they're going to jump on the public transport, and they're going to get from A to B. Very environmentally friendly, of course, from Sentinels to do so, but it looks like they're going to have to do a little bit more work, a little bit more running to get that cardiovascular system pumping and getting themselves healthy, as unfortunately for bots, it looks like they're not going to be too healthy for now, as Stompy and Jillian are trying to get away.
Mark, you're talking about eco-friendly in a map that features lava running through the direct center of it. It's been through so much trials and tribulations. A gondola is not really going to save much here on World's Edge.
Lava gives off a lot of heat, and I'm just saying there's a lot of thermodynamic energy that could be produced from that, okay?
That's one way to look at it, and maybe we can reassess. You
just don't know your renewable energy, Dan, like I do.
It's true.
It's okay.
It's true. We'll see if you drive an electric car, then we'll really talk about who's saving the environment, yeah? But Sentinels, they managed to get a little bit of KP to work with, and now they can move on into the circle. It is going to be a more eastern circle, the most east we've actually been today. Could head over towards Overlook, which would create for a nice, interesting end. Or, of course, Big Maud is going to be just south of where people go. Maybe Geyser's going to be a big vantage point for a lot of these teams.
Of 100 Thieves, they're going to land on a care package. Unfortunately for them, it's going to be a rampage, which is always a, do I want it? Do I not want it? I'm not sure.
It's red.
It's red, but it's not quite the thing you want from the care package. That should be real. And instead, look at this. He can't decide. Does he want it? Doesn't he want it? I feel sorry for the rampage, to be honest.
I will say that the rampage sound still echoes through my ears from the World Championships, so I kind of want to hear it again. I want to get that feeling back in. Speaking of feelings, there's some different feelings happening down here in the tunnel. Oxygen taking this fight.
Goodness, yeah, I'm dominating this fight by the looks of things. Team Smiley eliminated. Nobody really taking much damage there. It was a perfect bubble fight, and even though there might be a third party on the horizon, or certainly the idea of the third party on the horizon is being entertained here by Oxygen Esports, they will be safe. They will be able to reset, and they will be able to get some more damage down. For now, just taking a look at the circle, it's going to be a fairly central-looking circle from the first indication that we do have, but it looks like a Geyser is the hot place to be. As we can see, a lot of teams currently set up inside of it. Oxygen Esports are going to be inside of that vault tunnel that we can see. Complexity already made their way over. The Guard, of course, they're going to be there, who love to rotate quickly. And Optic are at the very edge of it, right deep inside of it, as you can see on your screens right now. NRG are the team to watch, though. I really want to see what NRG do to try and force their way into this zone, because with so many teams already in the vicinity, already set up in the buildings, the real estate is going to be slim.
Yeah, I mean, there's me looking at the map overhead, trying to guess where it's going to finish, seeing teams make their way to Geyser. They know something I don't. I think they've got the beacon information, because there is everyone right now trying to find area in Geyser, knowing that the circle is going to be heading in that direction. Those teams, however, who aren't in Geyser, seem to be having a fight. It's FaZe and it's G2 again in a scuffle here.
Oh, this is a dangerous fight there, Frank. Down, moves in to clean up the damage. One more player left alive. Snipe Down does not need to be asked twice. FaZe look like they're going to take G2 apart here. The wingman shots from Snipe Down finally get the job done. Nobody goes down. FaZe, that's about as clean as you can want on a team that's as talented as G2.
And it is disappointing end to G2's day after such a promising start on Storm Point. World's Edge just hasn't really been their cup of tea. And FaZe have been, again, the team that puts that final nail in the coffin when they're trying to rotate towards the eastern side of the map. Circles maybe haven't gone in favor of G2, but they are certainly capable of getting through map rotations without losing these fights. So that's going to be a difficult pill to swallow for them, that's for sure.
Well, Complexity is set up here deep into Geyser as well, up on the high ground. They've got the Watson Gen down, they've got the fences down, and also with that Seer Ultimate going down in front of them, they know there's a little bit of a scuffle going on involving Optic Gaming to their right. 100 Thieves in the vicinity. And it looks like 100 Thieves and Optic might be trying to share the building, which is never something that the team inside wants to do. And that's going to be Noctu gets the first knock here for Optic in that kill feed. So 100 Thieves down to 2.
Could argue.
Everything, just get close with him. You play with him.
You're in a
I'm coming back. I'm coming back. I'm not getting greedy.
They're right here. There's a nerd. This is a tunnel team. This is a tunnel team.
Yep, our spot's also just better than their spot, too.
Yeah,
We don't... Oh, yeah, they're right
Be
here.
purely for kills.
I broke this door off, too, by the way.
Raj.
Raj.
Alright, anybody have more ammo that they want to? Here, take the 3, take the 3.
Okay.
Or I can farm mine, up to you, don't matter.
Broke the door off.
Okay, good.
Be careful, there's a low bot in our range, by the way. Low bot in our range.
Yeah.
He just so... It's all good, don't worry about it. Let's go, baby, our fucking game. Curto Jones, like scanning over there.
There's a team stabilizing like back res beacon.
Yeah.
They just got rocketed.
Heard.
I'm rocketing off these doors now too. Right next to you, right next to you. 34 on him.
You're getting grief from low too.
34 on that guy, 100 on this guy.
Getting impeded.
They might walk up on our west, get ready!
I'm looking already, I'm looking. They're not doing it.
Popping cells.
Left and cells. I'm 2-7 after this.
2-4.
I'm 2-8 after.
Yeah, you can kill the rest of that one.
Do I hear anyone close or no?
Get fences out when you can.
Yeah.
Someone rise back here, someone rise back there.
Yep, can't do anything.
Yeah, make it ape.
Just calling. There's a team in here. That's the crypto team. That's the crypto team right there.
Yeah.
Which one? Get your ping out again. Oh, I see it, sorry.
You're good.
Well, back into the game. Surprise with the listening, by the way. Complexity, we always love to hear the comms and always good to hear the listening from the Cole lineup. They're holding down this high ground effectively at the moment, Dan, but 15 squads still alive. And as we have the opportunity to look at our map overheads on the second screen, everybody pretty much is inside a Geyser right now. Sentinels making a late rotation from the north. They're on the no-name, just the other side of this mountain range. FaZe on the outside of it as well, but everybody else inside a zone. And Geyser, there is not much room to play with.
Yeah, before I was abruptly interrupted by the angelic voices of Complexity. I was trying to say that the building they were pushing into could be the best building to have, but who was waiting on the other side? Optic Gaming. Optic Gaming again in one of the best positions if we see the circle have that full-on pull towards the east side of Geyser, which it does so often and what a lot of these teams maybe will be banking on. But really, if you got into Geyser in the early stages, you took any real estate you could. You couldn't really pick and choose to buildings if you were not the first team. You just had to take anything that can keep you safe from all of the teams that are going to be arriving late. Because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that are still outside of Geyser out of 14. So over half of the lobby have already found themselves within buildings. And if my memory serves me correct, there's probably not enough buildings to habitat 14 squads, Mark.
Yeah, there certainly isn't, not to coexist for sure, and FaZe are taking a very different approach to this game. Playing right on the edge. To their north at the moment is LG, up on that high ground on the ridge. The other team who is kind of overlooking things at the moment is going to be Dark Zero. They're on the big Mord side of things, looking to control that choke. NRG inside of the dome building. Team Liquid just Valkyrie redeployed as well into the Skyward Dive, and they're looking to land inside of Geyser. They've landed on a safe spot for now, but Sentinels, they're trying to force their way in. They're trying to bully their way through this vault tunnel. And with 2 minutes and 10 seconds left, they should be good to do so, but Lou takes a huge amount of damage, and Oxygen are going to push off this.
Yeah, Oxygen get the bubble down, just to give them a little bit of protection. Nades will now come out to try and just get an extra little bit of tickle on the damage side, but looks like there isn't going to be any sort of a finish of a fight right now because very concerned about third parties. And speaking of third parties, FaZe also getting involved in a little party of their own right now, breaking down doorways to try and finish off LG, who are on the other side.
Snipe down with a hip fire. Good job here from FaZe. They should be able to reset here as well. No one in the vicinity, so FaZe get the kills. They pick up the points, and I know Halloween was a few days ago now, but that was a horrible trick or treat. The knock on the door was met with a peacekeeper from Albraleli. The fight continues here between Oxygen and Sentinels. It's a little bit of a scrappy one inside and around this bubble. One shot miss could cost you though. Sentinels moving in. Cross has got the wingman in his hands. He's trying to flick. He's trying to connect, waiting for the players to peek. But at the moment, it looks like Senox is going to do something crazy. Protect 4 in a 1v1 and Sentinels go down. Protect 4 will win it here for Oxygen.
But unfortunately, at what cost? What do they win here? They win maybe just a bit of KP, because 100 Thieves are going to come in to spoil everything that they've just worked for and should be able to finish off, will finish off Oxygen, who go out in 12th position. So they gained no extra placement points from taking that fight. Of course, just the 3 extra KP from winning that engagement. Sentinels may be ruining Oxygen's day a little bit more so than Oxygen, because they were just kind of waiting. They were happy where they were, but it was Sentinels trying to force the agenda. It was Sentinels trying to get into a better position, because Sentinels weren't happy to just be on edge and, you know, try and scrap for a couple of placement points. Sentinels wanted to get into the circle. Sentinels wanted to get into a position where they could win the game.
100 Thieves now control this vault tunnel with all these teams stacked up inside. If we do see a pull away or towards them, it can be a real influence on how their game goes. If it pulls away, they're going to have to fight out of those 2 doors. Only two exits, excuse me, to play with. One extremely small door. And of course, the sliding doors in front of them. Look at this position, though, from Team Liquid. Up on this high ground. Very sneaky position for them. But it's not the highest of high grounds. As there is, of course, an Obi-Wan for the Anakin up on the rocks above them. Fun taking so much damage as well. Luckily for them, the wall is there to give them a little bit of cover. But it's looking a little bit sticky here for Team Liquid. They might have to reevaluate this position.
Don't get me started on Star Wars references. I'll be here all day. So instead, I'll move on. As Team Liquid, you know, they were in a spot where they still could win this week. They still could take first place with another big game here. They've had great consistency. We've seen 2 victories from them already. They have dropped off ever so slightly, but their wins were so big, they're still in the shout and still in the question for winning this week. But this is not an easy spot to be playing, because there's a lot of eyes that could be on you, a lot of nades that could come your way, and it's about just utilizing this castle wall to your best ability and staying alive for as long as possible to get more ring information so you can then make your move and see where you want to go next.
And Fun's probably thinking as well, I wish that timer would go quicker on my ultimate so I can get another castle wall down as quickly as possible. But Complexity still holding down this position inside a Geyser. They will be safe for the next zone as well. So Complexity getting this early position is great for them. They've held off a lot of teams trying to move in, trying to pressurize them, as Optic is still going to be inside that very eastern building too. So Complexity and Optic will be more than aware of each other's presence. Everyone's poking, everyone's prodding. But nobody really getting the advantage at the moment.
And we saw the map overhead. It was very much ruined by Loba ultimates, made it difficult to see where the circle was going, but circle is going to be heading west. So those teams that did bank on the east side are going to be struggling a little bit, but teams like NRG, Team Liquid, Guard are all in prime position right now.
NRG are in an amazing spot, by the way, for everyone. I don't know how they've got control of the big dome building here inside of Geyser with how much action was going down, but they have for now. The dome building I'm talking about, that's the one that Liquid are on the outside of right now. NRG are right next to them inside on that top level. Liquid and NRG, this could be a huge influence on this lobby and maybe potential weeks, because if Liquid manage to come out of this on top and come out strong, then they will be in a position to maybe win this week. If NRG can survive here and cause some problems, then NRG will have that game they've been desperate for so far today.
So many teams with eyes on Liquid. They have no right for surviving here, but we've already seen them this tournament stay alive in the most unprecedented of ways. Our team, I do want to just quickly highlight as well, a team that's still alive is FaZe. They're on the far west side of the map, and they could really do some damage in this circle because they are going kind of anonymous at the moment. No one's really noticed them, so we might see FaZe make a big impact on the later circles here if they can stay unnoticed.
Oh, what a rotation this is as well from Liquid. They go from the outside to the inside. They now know that NRG are across from them, but they found a safe position to play. Again, slightly surprised this position is open as we see Luminosity in the kill feed as well. 100 Thieves have lost Vaxilon, but a bit of a trade now going down as everyone tries to force their way in onto this zone. FaZe overlooking all of this that's going down right now. Complexity takes to the skies. They have to leave their position. Optic have left their position as well. Everyone is about to scrap. It's about to be a barroom brawl here inside of Geyser.
And you've still got teams to come from the northern side of the circle. 100 Thieves are up there having a fight at the moment. Guard take down the Optic players. They've still got one, but first attempt are eliminated in 11th, so we're down to our top 10 as 100 Thieves will get that final wipe, and now they control the northern cross, that kind of northern border that you see. They can work with that, but Guard, our leaders in the tournament, they can look out over towards 100 Thieves. They have perfect sight lines, but they are once more center circle sitting pretty.
Winning the last game for the Guard and winning the final game, and maybe they will be able to steal away first place here in match day number 2 in the North American Pro League. Rambo's been having a great game, a great day, I should say, on the Watson, picking up a huge amount of kills, one of the kill leaders for sure in the lobby. Well, RKN leading the troops forward here. Keown, the ranked superstar, being joined, or should I say joining this lineup, excuse me, gets the down onto Jim Burton as well, so DZ lose one as well. Now Liquid have managed to get all of the fences you could possibly ask for down, as well as the castle wall. They are fortifying this building. They do not want NRG to get close.
Well, actually, Team Liquid and NRG now are in different buildings. NRG have moved across to the kind of next Snake building, it would seem. Or they're on the outside. They're having a little fight with Hand at the moment, but Team Liquid, after being in such a difficult position, are in one of the best positions, but FaZe are moving in elsewhere, by the way. I can just see it on the side of my screen that FaZe are now finally making their way into the circle, but I think they've just gone into the same building as Liquid. All the meanwhile, 100 Thieves looking down from above still have to make their way into the circle, but are being held out by both Guard and Optic right now.
Snipe down kills Sweet, who was the final player alive on NRG. So NRG out in 8th position from what looked like a great position for them to hold. They try and make a play. FaZe kind of move in as the hermit crab, so to speak, and take what was the old NRG position away. Liquid still sat in center zone. Optic still alive as well as 100 Thieves now go up high, but look at the damage that Scurry's taking. He gets the defensive walls down from the ultimate, but it's not going to be enough maybe for them to survive. It is just holding on by tooth and nail here for 100 Thieves.
Optic and Guard working together to be a pain in the backside for 100 Thieves at the moment, but they are just about staying alive. Bullets coming from the other side of the map now. They are between a rock and a hard place, very much so, but somehow still getting the bats off. Unfortunately, Scurry goes down, so now 100 Thieves in a 2 versus what seems like 15 right now.
Yeah, 2 versus a lot. That is as simple as that. They're going to have frag grenades being thrown at them, ultimates thrown at them, black hole thrown at them, and Shiny does get the finish onto Scurry as well as the Guard inside this building, though. If they can get any kind of sight angle through the slim bars, then there might be KP available for them. 2 already here in the hands of one of their players. Rambo, he's got the assist as well. Excuse me, RKN got the assist in that. 3 team kills overall, 3 KP, and now it's barbecue time. And 100 Thieves is on the menu.
Optic Gaming also getting eliminated amidst that absolute madness that's happening outside. Speaking of madness, himself, Shubi, and Pow Pow arguably in the best position now. They find themselves in that southern building that NRG once had. And with where this circle is going to be ending up, it's going to be finishing bang in between those 2 Snake buildings, just kind of south on this screen of where those jets are. And that means that the 2 teams are going to be able to stay in the Snakes for quite some time, whereas Team Liquid and FaZe, they're going to have to move a little bit early. So I'm looking looking at Guard, I'm looking at Madness's team. These are going to be the guys that are really going to make the difference right now in this final circle.
100 Thieves still alive somehow or other. Omnu is still in this game. Vaxxon trying to make the move off, and Complexity want to pressurize. They want to finish off 100 Thieves here. They want to get them out of the lobby, and it looks like Complexity with that play have done exactly that. The worry here for these teams who have to leave the buildings is there's only one way to leave. They have to leave through these doorways, and that's why Albrelelli has made such a ballsy play to take the high ground on top of one of these buildings now for FaZe. Snipe down and Slurp still inside of that dome building, but Albrelelli says, I want to command the space that's in front of us. I want to take control.
Snipe down, had disconnected, but I think he's back into the game. Yes, he is. FaZe now can make a move, and they will take a position above Madness and Co. And it means Team Liquid are going to now be the next team that have to move from where they are. Complexity just above Guard. They can stay here for quite some time, but they just have to watch this angle from the eastern side, because Team Liquid are going to try and do damage before they move in. But FaZe moved early and take a great spot right now.
FaZe move early. They get this high ground. They have a little bit of a head glitch to play with as well. They know that the teams aren't going to be able to jump up behind them. It's just in front of them they have to worry about. And if they play this one smart, they play this one slow and methodically, there might be an opportunity for FaZe to put another win on the board here. They're trying to just destroy that castle wall. They're trying to expose Complexity up on that high ground. The Complexity are just doing damage to everyone at the moment, but the zone is going to be an issue here for Complexity.
It's literally finishing right in between all of these teams as well. Castle Wall makes a big difference. Complexity full send it, but have lost 2 and will unfortunately go down in 5th position. So now 4 squads to duke it out here.
Albrelelli doesn't have the bubble to play with here either. So FaZe are just going to be straight up fighting here. Guard move in as well. They can't get the armor swaps. FaZe now moving to clean up the pieces. It's 2 teams remaining in MPL. Managed to come through and stand tallest at the end of the game. They will get the win, but what a crazy, crazy end zone that was in our final game.
And honestly, MPL, Madness & Co., the way they held not just that final circle, but they held NRG. NRG tried to take that position away from them. We saw where NRG were, and they were feeling pretty safe, but NRG wanted to get a game-winning position, thought they could go into the snake, but MPL denied them, and they were able to stay alive and get the victory because of that big fight that they won previously. But honestly, that was absolute mayhem in the final circle. That could have gone any way or anyway in a situation like that, John.
Yeah, absolutely. It felt like you rolled a 5-sided die ultimately, but MPL is the last one standing. Kudos to them. A big game. They were in 16th or 17th place, so that'll at least give them a few points in Pro League. But ultimately, the bigger storyline here, guys, is we had FaZe, we had the Guard, we had Team Liquid. Each of our top 5 teams in the overall standings all make it to late game. Complexity as well in 6th or 7th. So super competitive late game and a lot at stake. But ultimately, I got to think the Guard did enough to hold on to their lead. I have no idea. It's going to come down to kills, I think, overall, Gaskin.
Yeah, I think the Guard should have done enough, judging by where they finished. But again, there may have been some extra KP picked up where we didn't see it on screen that might just be able to push one of these teams a little bit further. We'll have to wait until those tallies are there. But as for MPL, that's going to send them very much up the leaderboards. They were down in the bottom 10, but they should jump into top 10, if not further, with that victory there.
Yeah, and we just got confirmation, I believe. MPL first, FaZe second, the Guard third, and Team Liquid 4th. So unless TL fragged out, which I didn't see them pick up a ton of KP throughout the lobby. It was actually really impressive that they made it to that late game because they were under such duress. That game was the definition of be comfortable being uncomfortable in Apex Legends. You can almost do a VOD review on it. Something tells me Hodzic will be dropping that on his YouTube here soon. But a really good game from Team Liquid. Ultimately, though, impressive from FaZe as well on set. The use of Gibraltar late game is still so strong.
Yeah, I mean, it's the great thing, right? Everyone kind of always looking for an option, a way to kind of mix things up. That's going to give them an advantage in certain situations they're seeing develop on the map. But everyone still has their strengths, right? And Gibraltar is always going to have strengths on World's Edge, especially when teams stop playing, when other teams stop using them in the composition. The less Gibraltar's there on the lobby, the more advantage having the Gibraltar becomes because you have the defensive bombardment. You also have the ability to bubble that other teams do not have. It's this kind of chess game that we see in the meta, in the compositions of teams and what they want to play. And I've got to be honest, I love watching Albrelelli on Gibraltar as well because he plays it so aggressively. And I think that if you've got an aggressive Gibraltar who can also stay alive and provide cover, you've got the perfect kind of player.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. And I love that analogy to a chess game because it honestly does feel like that. It feels like Apex in terms of legend meta and picks has become quite the chess game. Pick your pieces wisely, except a chess game where you get to pick whatever pieces you want to use going into the game, which is interesting. Let's take a look at the highlights here in game number 6. And I love that analysis, Mark, with Gibraltar late game. Ultimately, the bubble and the defensive bombardment ultimate came in clutch for FaZe, but it wasn't just the end game. we saw FaZe pick up a few kills along the way, Gaskin.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of action in the early game as well, which featured the shark attack, as Mark put it best, when Sentinels got involved in this third party, and they so perfectly surrounded their prey in a triangle formation. Unfortunately, Sentinels couldn't get to a point where they could compete in the end game because they came across Oxygen Esports, who were in the tunnel waiting for them, and they ruined Oxygen's day, but Oxygen also got the last laugh, really, because they got the last amount of kills. But it was FaZe who stayed alive, took down a team like G2 again here on World's Edge to give them the chance of getting to the final circle.
Yeah, and here's some of the kill points we talked about. G2 obviously showed some moments of greatness, but FaZe looked really, really solid today, gentlemen. Luminosity Game picking up a couple kills, and here's the moment you mentioned, Gaskin, where they took out Sen, but then got taken out immediately after by 100 Thieves. Oxygen will end on the second page here, bottom 10 teams in the overall standings. But FaZe looking really strong, and I think if I had to make a guess if I was a betting man, I think Guard first, Liquid second. FaZe may have stuck in top 3. SSG got taken out early, Mark.
Yeah, they did, but whenever you start talking about numbers, you're talking about placements, I'm never interested in that conversation because I will always tell you the incorrect information. I'm too wise to that situation now. I know myself too well. I'll have to wait and see how the overall leaderboard does look. But I think the takeaway for me was just the consistency of the Guard. Once again, in probably the best position in the game, and they're first, which I think is something to talk about a lot of the time when we're talking about this team and the way they want to approach things. Whenever there is a zone, however they can get there as quickly as possible, the Guard are always going to give you the indication of where the game is going to end. They have such good knowledge on both World's Edge and, of course, Stormpoint that it's serving them so well. And I think that you're seeing a combination of playstyles once again, showing different levels of success. FaZe this endgame, playing Edge, walking in extremely late, still managing to get into that top 2 and get KP, but it was a crazy end circle. Everyone had to play their cards at some point, and it was MPL who managed to hold the best hand when it was all said and done.
Oh, and a big kill game as well. Congrats to MPL. And kudos to them, they're not playing with loot anymore, so they got to get rid of the L. It's now MPS, apparently, on multiplayer servers. They're going to be playing alongside Snooby here in this one, but good showing from the Black Hand team member in his debut with this squad, and at least in game number 6. But FaZe Clan with 11 kills, a monstrous game from the second place team, and a team that performed so well on World's Edge, Gaskin.
Yeah, it really was night and day for FaZe, Stormpoint to World's Edge, and it does show how, you know, practice can affect things on map to map. We see some teams prefer one map to the other, but it's about consistency across the board to really put you up there in the standings. Yeah. And you look at teams like the Guard, like SSG, who were consistent across both maps that are probably going to be, you know, leading these leaderboards, but FaZe have been able to sneak their way up with their amazing performances on World's Edge because of how big their games have been and how many kills they've been able to get.
And you got to keep in mind, guys, Snipedown hasn't played a lot of Stormpoint. He's been playing Halo for the past year and finally made the switch back to Apex Legends. Stormpoint got introduced a year ago, so he really missed the opportunity to play Stormpoint. He's still learning that map, and the reps that he has on World's Edge obviously come through, and it shows why they perform so well there. Take a look at the second page here. Sentinels, another early exit from them, not necessarily performing to the expectations that we had hoped for them given their return to Apex, but we know it's just the beginning. It's their debut, their first day in Pro League. They're going to continue to get better and better with Tech at coach, but not the best showing for Sentinels playing Revenant. I wonder if they're going to change things up. But guess what? Ladies and gentlemen, it is time. Let's take a look at the overall standings for today. The winner of the Group A versus Group C Pro League is the Guard with a monstrous statement victory over the likes of FaZe Clan, Team Liquid, NRG, Optic Gaming, Space Station, Dark Zero, and so many more. If you wondered if the Guard is a top tier team in Apex Legends, this certainly answered your question, Onset.
Unbelievable performance from them. I think their consistency is something that everybody would aspire to have across 6 games, to be consistently putting points on the board. I mean, I don't think the Guard had a bad game today. There was always something for them to be proud of, and I want to mention FaZe, by the way. What a comeback that is, to take second place with 2 big performances, 1 win on World's Edge and 1 second place with a hell of a lot of KP alongside it. Just shows how even if you leave it late, if you start to find a little bit of a flow, you can certainly boost yourself up to that upper echelons of where you want to be finishing in these Pro Leagues games. And on the other side of things, you have to highlight NRG, you have to highlight Optic. Not the strongest of days for them once again. They'll have to really put some thought into it, because these lobbies don't get any easier now that we're down to 30 teams. There's no easy week, so to speak, where you can pick up some free KP and easy placement points. You have to work so hard for anything.
Yeah, you heard Nocturnal say it on Twitter the other day. These lobbies are so sweaty every single week, every Thursday, every Sunday night. Apex fans, this is what you can expect. The best of the best, the sweatiest lobbies, and the best Apex we have ever seen. I mean, that Game 6 said it all, Gaskin.
Yeah, it did. And I think that when you look at the way they've been playing all day and how consistent they have been, maybe it wasn't going to be the best of days for them with some of the games, but I think when you are in a situation where you are constantly playing against the best players, in the region, you're going to have games that just don't go well, and it's about how you bounce back from them. And I think that's what I've been impressed by a lot of these teams throughout the lobby, actually, is they've all had that one game that maybe was a little bit shoddy, but they were able to respond, they were able to come back from it, especially the likes of FaZe, who had an awful storm point but come back into World's Edge. That takes a lot of mental stability and a lot of resources that you have to do and use behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at the kill leader. Rambo on top with 17. Congratulations to Rambo right behind him. Welcome back to Apex Legends. Eric sniped down Rona, the number 2 kill leader standings here for Snipe Down, with Luxford and Sykes, the young controller rookies, right behind them, rounding out the top 4. Wow. Rambo dominates Onset.
Yeah, I mean, that is a huge performance from him. He was the player who was stepping up most for them in those early games as well. He was the certainly leading the line for the guard, and when you got a player on Watson who is putting that many kills on the board, that means that he is cleaning up damage. He's listening extremely well, and he's doing everything you want from a player who's playing that legend. So Rambo, a pop-off performance, but I think we do need to highlight as well, Snipe Down, welcome back, my friend. It's great to have you back in the ALGS and it's still performing with 13 kills to your name.
Indeed it is. Snipe Down dominates today, and that certainly opens up a conversation here today. Who is the Monster MVP? It's a great discussion to be had because so many players performed in so many different ways. This is your Monster MVP, as I'll bring Onset and Gaskin into the discussion here today. Snipe Down with 13, Rambo with 17 in the kill leadership. However, there's obviously not just the kill statistic. There's other things that make a difference and make an impact. Onset, who do you have?
I have Rambo, even though you've said it. I'm going with the guy who has the most kills in the lobby, who came first place. I mean, how can you not, right? You got to give credit where credit is due. Another great performance from him. 17 kills on the board, leading the way, first place in the overall leaderboards. How can you not love what this man has been doing on both Stormpoint and, of course, especially on World's Edge? I just think that he's just, when you can see a player just develop and you see this belief and this kind of transformation in the way that they play statistically and also in game. I feel like Rambo had that at the ALGS Championships. He got a taste of what it's like to be on that main stage. He was one of those players who really kind of caught the imaginations of some of the fans who were watching, and he started to believe that he deserved to be there, and now he's putting in the performances to back up.
I like that call out, and kudos to Rambo performing, certainly. But for me, like I said, the kills aren't the only thing that make the difference. The IGLing is equally as important. The impact, the things that you can't record via statistics, your comms, your ability to calm down your team, your rotations, and that man was Nocturnal. The best to do it today. Back-to-back wins on Storm Point, and the ability in that Game 6 to stay relevant despite the entire lobby looking at them. We'll probably have that in the highlight package. Nocturnal performed so well. Not only does he manage to be a top fragger for this team, but he also manages to be the undisputed IGL, the sole IGL on this squad. And he's done it with so many rosters. They do it with Gildersons. They pick up Sykes, and they're just as good. And why is that? Yeah, Sykes is great, but it's not just these controller gods. It's Nocturnal being so consistent and so good as an IGL, and it showed today. Back-to-back Storm Point wins, and positioning was on point. So my MVP today, personally, is Nocturnal. Gaskin, who you got?
I'll join you on the back of Nocturnal. I think the way that he was able to kind of position himself and the rest of the team, manipulate their way through the map to ensure they were not only getting out of fights, but also getting into fights at the right time. It was just absolute magic to watch at times. They were the escape artists in some of those early engagements. No other teams would have been able to have the success rate they did with the amount of kind of trials and tribulations they went through, and a lot of that comes down to Nocturnal and the calls that he made.
I like that. Any other honorable mentions, Gaskin?
I think you got to look at everyone on that FaZe roster, maybe Albert Lely and how he played, but I think that, there's so many names you could highlight here for MVP, and it's incredible to see just how competitive this region is.
Completely agreed. Well, this has been your Monster MVP segment. Of course, great as always to discuss who individually performed, but it's time for one of my favorite parts of the segment. It's time for our interview, and guess what? We got none other than the IGL of the guard himself, RKN, joining us live for an interview. My man, congratulations on the dub. How you feeling right now, brother?
Oh man, I'm just I'm on top of the world, man. I mean, I'm so blessed to have the two teammates that I have. I think more so than anybody after the last split, Bo and I we were in not a good place, and I I don't even think we were going to be on the same team, but we were very fortunate to both get opportunities to like substitute at champs. And we both went through to winners bracket, and we both put on like the best performance that we could put on. And I mean, we just came back home after that, just totally reinvigorated. Keon was available, and we just rebuilt the squad. I mean, it's just never been the same since, man. I mean, just on top of the world.
That's amazing, man. And honestly, we spoke to that in the broadcast. I'm sure you're going to be watching back the VOD, but we mentioned that you guys went to champs and built so much confidence that champs came back, and it's cool to hear it from your perspective as well. But you obviously just moved to Atlanta today. Congratulations on your move. Congratulations to your wife on her new job. And you come in on a janky setup. I saw you tweeted earlier, and you performed. Yeah. Talk to me about your role as IGL of this team. Obviously, all odds against you here with the move just going on. But as IGL of this team, running the crypto composition, we'd love to learn a little bit more about your role and why you guys decided that comp. You're the only team that doesn't NA.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like more so than anything, we're a team that really like prides ourselves on consistency. There's going to be a lot of teams that come out here and drop like a 20 kill game, and I'm very like fundamentals based. And the one thing that I've always loved about BR Esports is that like people can say all they want about RNG, but there's a reason that the same top teams are consistently coming in the same top placements, and it's because the number one skill to BR Esports is minimizing RNG, which is something that we like consider ourselves like we specialize in. We just like play the game fundamentally for consistency. And I mean, today we hit an achievement run. We got first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. So we got all five in the top five.
That's amazing, dude. Congratulations, Arcane, of course, on the performance. I didn't even realize that, to be honest with you. So thank you for highlighting that to me. But I want to talk about your calls as an IGL here and how you're getting into such good spots consistently. Excuse me, because it's such a skill in itself, right? To know the algorithm and know expect where that zone is going to go. How much work do you have to put in as a player and as a team to know exactly the timing that you have to leave to get those spots on your side?
Yeah, I mean, to be totally transparent, I mean, part of the reason that like our torrent roster was like falling through is because we kind of like wanted an analyst or a coach, because like I take on so much of the burden. I mean, the only reason that I know the most of these zones is because I dedicate basically all of my time to understanding how the zone moves and where the zone's going to end. So, I mean, I think today the only zone that I was off on is the second Storm Point game. I did not imagine that was going to go all the way up the hill and end outside a mill. I saw earlier in EU today that exact same zone where Ascend played for the Acorn outside of like the Spider Bunker by C-Node Cave, and it pulled all the way back to the Beacon building at the bottom of the hill. So that's what we played for, and that's where we were. But then it pulled all the way up the hill, and I didn't expect it. But yeah, I mean, I just got hours in, man. The secret is I just got hours in. And obviously there's a little bit of an algorithm thing that goes into it, but I can't talk about that.
And we were talking about your consistency throughout the entire day, but your victory didn't come until a little bit later on when we got onto World's Edge. How important was it for you guys to get a win after, being in so many final circles throughout the day? Like, did that just lift your mood and you knew full well you had a chance to really take this week once that happened?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think a lot of the casters know, and I know Nicewig knows, and I know a lot of the watch party here knows, we make it to top 5 probably more consistently than any other team. I don't want to get quoted on that, but because Team Liquid is also super good at it. But we have been very poor at executing endgame. Our micro and endgame, we tend to make a lot of hiccups, and we often use the comm play for second, so we never play for the win, and that's been like a big downfall for us. So I think like finally getting to like throw up dubs on the board, especially during something like ALGS Pro League, is definitely starting to like move us ahead rather than consistently coming 5th and 6th. It's like the difference that makes you come first.
I may or may not have slightly roasted you guys for exactly that on like game 2 or 3. Yeah. And then you guys come out with wins on World's Edge, made me look like an idiot. So congratulations though on taking the dub and the overall dub on the day. RK, and so much respect, man. One of the few pro players in ALGS that was working full time. I believe as an engineer, if I remember correctly, retired and now playing Apex full time, and your intelligence, your approach certainly shows. Enjoy this one. Have fun celebrating with the boys and your wife at home. Congratulations on the move. Congrats to your wife again. And big congrats on the dub today.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
RKN, the IGL of the Guard. IGLing is a substitute for Invictus Gaming. You heard him speak about how much that impacted his team's performance. What a guy. What a performance from the Guard and RKN alongside Rambo and Keon. And what a win. What a day. It's been 12 hours. We've been doing this, gentlemen, from EMEA all the way to North America. As we wrap up and say goodbye, I want to ask you guys, any final thoughts? Onset, starting with you.
Final thoughts for me, the Guards, certainly a team to watch. And I just want to quickly highlight something RKN said, you know, how impactful belief can be for players and teams, right? One event completely changed the outlook for this lineup, and all of a sudden they look like a world beater. So the Guards certainly a team to watch, but also FaZe looking scary.
I also need to get this algorithm that he's got his hands on, because that would make casting a lot easier as well, with me going, oh, I think the circle might be going here. If I know where the circle's going, then things are suddenly a lot easier to cast. But honestly, such a happy gentleman, a happy chappy is RK, and it's great to see him have so much success after, you know, the difficult times they went through. And the Guard were very impressive today. Love the consistency, and I love what he spoke about with, you know, there is RNG, but sometimes it's about eliminating that RNG in your own way.
Yeah, one of the greatest human beings and best Twitter follows, by the way. He's always memeing, joking on Twitter. Make sure to follow RKNHD on Twitter. Shout out to the entire Guard squad. Well, that'll be it for y'all. Thank you so much for a great day. You guys absolutely crushed it. And again, we'll see you next time on the broadcast here as we close things out on the day. What a day it was. As we said, EMEA, it started with an Ascend win. Two teams you didn't expect to take home the first place spot, but that just goes to show how truly competitive Apex currently is. Ascend, the Portuguese squad, takes home first in EMEA. And then, of course, in North America, it's the Guard over the likes of FaZe, 100 Thieves, NRG, Optic, who we expected to come in and perform. Instead, RKN, Rambo, and Keon get their first ALGS W. Congratulations to them. That's going to shake up the standings quite a bit. Thank you to every single one of you, Apex family. I love y'all. Twitch chat's always amazing when Apex is involved. We appreciate y'all so much. Thank you for tuning in. We will catch you on Sunday. We have the EMEA and North American broadcast in just a couple days. What a week of Apex it has been. A few more days from now, we will be back with some more ALGS. On behalf of myself, I'm Fallout, my co-casters, Onset and Gaskin, our entire production team live from London with Esports Engine. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll catch you on Sunday. Ha ha ha.